Hey guys! Today we're going to start recapping the manhwa I Raised My Childhood Friend as a Tyrant. If you like this kind of content, please like and subscribe. One simple click really helps us to be able to post more videos. The first thing we see is a woman named Viche, kneeling in front of a group of guards with a sword pointed at her as she is asked if she has murdered the Emperor. She's apparently a transmigrator and was just an ordinary office worker in Korea, when one day she reincarnated as an extra in a novel by the name of Viche Almarine. She was surprised, but played her part in the events of the novel, hoping that if she did so, she would eventually be able to go back to her original world. Following the plot, Viche befriended Prince Jade, who had been kicked out of the Emperor's castle for being an illegitimate child. He grew up considering her as his only family, and today, she is supposed to be executed on Jaden's behalf, which will hurt Jaden deeply and turn him into a tyrant. So here she is, kneeling, when Jaden suddenly appears, handsome as hell, and implores her to deny everything. She ignores him and openly admits to the crime. His knees give out as he blames himself for what's about to happen. And just like that, our female lead is executed. Well, that's a jolly start, isn't it? So, this should be over now, right? Wrong. To Viche's disappointment, she actually wakes up as a younger version of herself and is greeted in her bedroom by a devilishly cute, wide-eyed 10-year-old Jaden. Not only him, she is 10 again as well. Confused, she asks herself why she came back. Hadn't she done everything she was supposed to? She asks Jaden, who is acting strange for his age, to leave her room, as she needs time to think to see why her original plan hadn't worked, and to figure out what she was going to do with Jaden now. Was she supposed to befriend him again? Finally, she decides this time around she needs to change the original flow of the events of the novel to go back to her world. Originally, after Viche's execution, Jaden starts a revolution in the kingdom using the magical abilities he inherited from his royal bloodline. However, he also inherited a curse, which causes him to go mad, as previous royals did, and only the saintess Cecilia was able to help him. She doesn't really know what happens after that, but she thinks they surely live happily ever after together. Now, she is left confused with a 10-year-old Jaden who is oddly being much sweeter than he used to be, wondering how he is supposed to become the ruthless villain she knows he'll be, and how she'll ever go back home. Trying to test the limits of young Jaden's newfound sweetness, Viche focuses on trying to anger him. She tries breaking things and blaming it on him, breaking toys, and even tries crashing a crystal antique before Jaden stops her. Not mad at all, but worried that she might cut herself if she did so. I know, right? So cute. She even goes to the extreme of throwing a bucket full of water on him, and when he acts completely unbothered by it, Viche, desperate for some kind of reaction, backs him up against a wall, demanding him why he doesn't get mad at her at all. At that, a stunned Jaden grabs Viche's hand and tells her that he wasn't mad at her at all, but then adds all mysteriously that he could be for one reason only, but leaves Viche with a whole lot of questions hanging from her mouth. Coming to terms with Jade's maturity and calmness, she goes looking for him in the library. Jade catches Viche off guard with a killer smile, and she asks him what he's reading. Realizing he's reading a romance novel, trying to test his tyrant inclinations, she takes the book off his hands and gives him a pile of darkly themed political books to read. Jade is surprised, as those aren't typically the books a 10-year-old should be reading, but still he likes them and starts devouring them. As they are sitting there together, Viche finally decides she will truly befriend Jade. He seems sweet enough, and she's the only family he ever had, so with that, she is determined to be the best friend she can be for Jaden. Jaden then tells Viche that he has started attending swordsmanship classes, but worried about where this might lead him, she tries to persuade him not to go this time, to stick with her reading and snacking. Yeah, right after giving him a huge pile of how to become a villain handbooks. Her plans are intercepted by butler Louis, who scolds her for trying to convince Jaden to skip class. An amused Jaden rubs Viche's head and tells her they can play after his class. I could just melt with how wholesome he looks. Viche is informed then that his father, the Marquis, has just arrived from a business trip, and that he brought Viche's unbearable cousins with him, Duffrey and Benjamin. we are introduced to Duffrey and Benjamin Louis Chelsea, the cousins of Viche's late mother. Apparently, she died shortly after giving birth to her, so Viche could only ever admire her beautiful and elegant mother through portraits. We are also introduced to Viche's father, Prince Amelia, who is quite surprised by Viche's exhilarated welcome. Viche actually really missed him because in the previous rundown of events, he died shortly before her 15th birthday. She is then told to go play with the cousins. And oh boy, does everything go down. It doesn't take more than a minute for Duffrey to start bad-mouthing Jaden, calling him an orphan and a servant. Viche is fuming, but Jaden doesn't seem to express any annoyance at all. She was trying to restrain herself from doing anything rash, but after that little brat called Jaden a dog, Viche couldn't contain herself anymore and plunged right at him. Benjamin then jumps after her, trying to stop her, but it's futile. She is absolutely enraged. It is only then that Jaden intercedes, taking Benjamin off her back and ordering her to stop what she is doing. With a stern look, he tells her not to do things on his behalf. Oh my, seems that she's finally found a way to anger him. Confused as to why Jaden seems so reluctant in letting her defend him, Viche gets up from on top of Duffrey with Jade's help. She then notices Jade's foot stepping on Duffrey's hand, and it seems Jaden wasn't so unaffected by Duffrey's words after all. Viche is skeptical as to whether this could be intentional, as she has convinced herself that young Jade is nothing but sweet and pacifist. And after one angelic smile from Jade, Viche is convinced it was unintentional after all. Ignorance is bliss, am I right? With that, Viche became her cousin's worst fear. One look from her would have them quivering. We are then shown Viche, Jade, the cousins, and the Marquis having a family dinner. The Marquis asks if the cousins and Jade got along, and with one daunting look from Viche, the cousins claim to become Jade's greatest friends. It is then that the Marquis asks Jade about his tutoring, given that he seems to be excelling at his swordsmanship classes. He asks him whether he would want another more qualified tutor. Jade refuses the swordsmanship classes, only to ask if they could hire a magic tutor for him. Everyone seems quite surprised at Jade's request. Of course, the Marquis and Viche knew Jade was supposed to bear magical abilities because of his royal bloodline, but it had been told that the royal family abandoned him because he had no mana. Obviously, he had in fact been abandoned because of the formalities and propriety of the imperial family, being that he'd been mothered by a non-royal. Cups spill, like actually spill, when he mentions that he wished to be tutored by the Grand Duke Kaufmel, the famously lunatic younger brother of the Emperor. He has been secluded from the world for a long time, so it would be near impossible for the Marquis to contact him, and he is known to be a madman, aside from the family curse and all. The Marquis is hesitant, but as with Viche, one soft smile from Jade and he is won over. I mean, we can't blame him either. Following up, Viche then decides to start swordsmanship class with Jade and forces the cousins to come along. Seems she has found the perfect place to kick their asses in a sort of legal way. Go Viche! Finally, the chapter ends on a beautiful note. Viche seems to have gotten a hold of some fireworks and is lighting them up at night along with the cousins and Jade, whilst Jade looks at her adoringly, telling her that he would never forget that moment. A day's Viche is in history class while her handsome teacher is giving her and Jade a lesson on the Empire's founding myth, on how the first emperor killed the dragon Tyrant and used its magic to found the Empire. She is daydreaming about Jade's sparkling eyes the night of the fireworks. Same, sis, same. During class, Jade asks the teacher the cause of the death of the first emperor. This leaves Viche troubled. She is surprised to hear a 10-year-old asking such morbid questions. She thinks she should be happy, as she is supposed to raise him to be a tyrant after all, but she is still troubled. She also ponders whether he is secretly referring to the imperial family's curse, even though that is highly unlikely given that it was kept secret from anyone outside royalty. Jade is only supposed to find out about it after he learns about his magical abilities later on. Suspicious. A little tension builds between Viche and Jade after class, when Jade asks Viche if she finds their teacher handsome. More specifically, he asks her if she likes him. I just love how transparent Jade seems to be. After they pass by Viche's mother's portrait, Viche asks Jade what his type of girl is, just playing around. It is then that Jade, blushing and all, gives a replica description of Viche. Come on, don't be so clueless, girl! Trying to put the pieces together and failing hilariously, Viche thinks Jade was referring to her late mother with that description. Jade laughs hysterically at this. I mean, come on, girl! How can you be so clueless? He then says that her mother looks like someone he misses, and Viche tears up, thinking he is referring to his own late mother. Jade wipes her tears, telling her that whatever she's thinking, that's not it, and that they'll meet again someday. Viche, still convinced he's referring to his late mother, tells him to cheer up and that she is sure they'll meet again. In her delusional head in heaven, but oh well, at least she's got good intentions, right? Later on, Viche has the brilliant plan to try to brainwash Jade into changing his ideal type into someone more similar to the saintess of the original novel, a dark-haired priest. With the subtlety of a torpedo launcher, she full-on tells him he should marry a dark-haired priest as they are kinder than light-haired people. I know, subtle. Jade then turns the table around and asks her whether she would marry a dark-haired man, and thinking of her original life back in Korea, she says she most probably will. Jade is just hearing what he wants to hear at this point. Suddenly, the cousins appear to invite them to go visit Capitol Street with them the next day. The kids arrive at Capitol Street where they see a wizard performing on the street in honor of the new bell tower that was built in front of the temple. There's only one religion in the Empire of Taranto, where everyone worships the goddess of benevolence, Losis. Religion is so strong that the Pope has the same power as the Emperor. That is why when Jade then becomes a tyrant, he has a lot of conflict with the church, even ending up bringing down the tower. Viche looks around at all the lavishly dressed women and feels bad about her own outfit. Jaden tells her she's the prettiest there, but Viche, being clueless Viche, is convinced he is lying and goes on a shopping spree. She ends up asking Jade to pick something out for her, and he picks this gorgeous red ribbon for her neck. Child of good taste. In the end, Viche looks at the church and starts wondering about God and how she ended up transmigrating to the novel, when she remembers a voice calling her when she first appeared in that world, wondering who or what that could have been. Viche wonders if it could have been Losis, the goddess of benevolence, as the one who brought her to this world. She quickly dismisses the thought, given that she was supposed to be the goddess of benevolence after all. The four kids run into the temple, which is fully open today for the special occasion. They then see a man selling supposedly magic boxes in which you are supposed to drop a note in with a wish, and in 5 years' time, you open it again and read the wish for it to be fulfilled. So they go ahead and write down their wishes, keeping them secret from one another until they open the box again together in 5 years' time. How cute! Finally, they go visit the goddess's statue. A surprised Viche notices that Jade is praying. She didn't expect him to believe in God, given that he supposedly destroys the temple when he becomes a tyrant. Following Jade, Viche closes her eyes and prays. She prays for the events of that world to flow as they should. The kids get together in the gardens of Viche's estate to bury the magic box, swearing that in 5 years' time they'll get together again to open it up. A few days later, we're shown the cousins saying their goodbyes to Viche and Jaden, as they are supposed to be returning to their homes. In the end, Duffrey became really attached to Jade, hugging him goodbye all teared up. In contrast, he doesn't even bid farewell to Viche, who waves goodbye at them in rage while Jade stifles a laugh. Jade asks Viche why she doesn't seem affected by the cousins' departure, insinuating she's a bit cold-hearted with respect to goodbyes. Taken aback, she tries to convince Jade she really is affected, but it is no use. She really can't lie to Jade. However, things take a turn when she tells Jade she would cry her heart out when he left her. Suddenly angered, Jade grabs her by the arm and tells her sternly to never talk like that. Viche is shocked, as she has never seen such an angry face on young Jade, even when she was desperately trying to anger him. It's nighttime, and Jade is having trouble sleeping, blaming his recurring nightmares. That's when he hears noises from his window and sees Viche digging up the wish box from the garden and trying to pry it open. Extremely amused, he watches as Viche is caught and scolded by a maid and Louis. Jade is finally able to go to sleep after that scene, thanking Viche internally for lighting up his mood. Flash forward 5 years in time, and we are introduced to a devilishly tall and handsome 15-year-old Jade. He hands over a letter from the twins to a grown-up Viche, which tells them that they would be coming over to visit in 2 days' time. They haven't been over in over 3 years, right after turning 13 and choosing their career paths. Apparently, Duffrey is now a theologist, while Benjamin has become a prosecutor. Viche reflects upon her life for a minute and realizes she has failed in turning Jade into a villain. He is sweeter than her, even. Afterwards, during dinner, Jade questions Viche about her plans on her debut. She is 15 after all. That's right around the age where girls start looking for a spouse. And Viche has been receiving loads of invitations from possible candidates. However, Viche isn't interested in any of that. She already knows she's supposed to die young to return to her original world, so she hasn't given it much thought. Nonetheless, Jade seems quite interested in Viche's answer. He asks her to tell him if she changes her mind about going to the debutante ball so they can go together. While Viche is convinced he says so only because he looks at her as a child. Clueless Viche. We are shown the Marquis all dressed up. Apparently, he's going to have dinner with the Amelia family's head. Viche notices Jade becomes a bit upset at this and questions him about it. Softly, he pulls a strand of her hair behind her ear and tells her how she is so perceptive at times, while other times so dense. Girl, we all know what he's referring to, but you? Come on. Afterwards, while Viche and Jade are playing music together, Louis barges in with a letter in hand. Apparently, after all these years, the Grand Duke Kaufmel has finally replied to Jade's petition to become his student. The difference this time was that it was Jade himself who wrote to the Grand Duke, while the previous times it had been the Marquis. Viche asks Jade what he wrote in the letter to have the Grand Duke finally reply, but he just says it was a story that the Grand Duke might find interesting. Always playing the mysterious card, are we, Jade? In the letter, the Grand Duke informs them that he will be coming to their mansion to teach Jade before summer is over. Intrigued, Viche wonders how this could affect the flow of events, given that in the original novel, this never happened. The chapter ends on a cryptic note, as Viche, in a narrating tone, tells us that it has been 5 years since they received that letter, and that it soon brought a lot of chaos into their family. We are shown how Jade came to live with Viche's family. Apparently, he was left aside by the Imperial family for being born without magic powers, blaming his low-born mother for that. So they decided to have him move in with the Marquis. The only people who knew that he was a prince were the Marquis, Louis, and Viche. Later, we see the cousins finally arrive at the palace. Years have definitely suited them well, as they have become really tall and handsome young men. Duffrey rushes to hug Jade, while, like old times, ignoring a quite irritated Viche. Viche then goes to welcome Benjamin, noting his stronger-built frame and calloused hands due to his night training. She offers a welcome hug, but Jade, with a stern and a little bit jealous look, tells her not to, that she shouldn't hug him just because they are opposite genders. A little bit protective, don't you think, Jade? At this, Duffrey marvels at how Viche could still remain so clueless regarding Jade's feelings after all these years. Same, bro. Anyhow, all 4 of them go on to have tea together, where Viche slips up and lets escape a term from present time when she asks Benjamin about his academic life. Trying to cover up for herself, she explains it the worst way possible, and Benjamin laughs in response, telling her that he sees why Jade told him that she is becoming more and more like a man each day. WTH, Jade? Viche starts to wonder if the career choices of the cousins will alter the original plot of the novel, as when Jade becomes a tyrant, he should have to face Benjamin and Duffrey as his enemies. Later on, Viche playfully rubs Duffrey's head to annoy him, but once again, Jade intercedes and takes her hand from Duffrey's head. Viche starts getting really annoyed at Jade, still clueless as to why he's behaving this way. Benjamin tries to help Viche notice why, telling her that Jade is only protective of her. Still, dense Viche replies that it is because Jade treats her like a wild puppy who will cause an accident if left alone. Hilariously, the twins comfort Jade while a confused Viche watches. Duffrey then tries to convince Viche to go on a debutante ball with him, as he has been wanting to attend one for some time but never found anyone to go with him. Once again, Jade intercedes and takes Viche's hand, telling Duffrey that she is not interested. Anytime she tries to talk for herself, she's cut off by Jade, who repeatedly and sternly tells Duffrey that Viche will not go with him. Viche is now getting real pissed at Jade. I mean, I would be pissed too. That is when she tells Jade that they should go together, which catches him by surprise, even though he can't refuse. The four of them start going through all of Viche's invitations to different debutante balls, but Jade keeps declining to go to any of them because he deems them not suited for Viche, the Marquis's daughter, to attend. That's when Jade suggests that Viche hosts her own ball there in the castle. Viche is a bit suspicious of Jade, as he went from being non-cooperative to fully committed in a second, but agrees anyway. Getting permission from the Marquis, her father, is easy enough, and so they start planning for the big ball. Duffrey and Louis shoulder most of the responsibility of the preparations, while Viche is told to take care of writing the invitation letters. She then asks Jade for help, so they set up a system where Jade takes the invitations out of the envelope, Viche writes the guest's name, and Jade then proceeds to put it back in the envelope and seal it. Pretty cheeky of Viche, as she has given Jade most of the work. When writing the names of the guests, she comes by the name of Carmel Gervais Taranto. Noticing that his last name is the name of the Empire, Viche realizes she is about to invite the crown's prince, Jade's half-brother. Viche starts to overthink the invitation. On one hand, she doesn't want to invite him in fear of causing distress to Jade. On the other hand, she knows that by not sending out that invitation, she may cause an unnecessary ordeal. In all of that, she spills the ink all over her hands. Jade, noticing that, helps Viche clean herself and tells her to invite the prince without concern. He mentions that he looks forward to seeing him, as in their last meeting, the prince was quite desperate. Later on, Viche interrupts the boys in Jade's bedroom while they are looking for new tuxedos to buy for the ball. While doing that, Viche reminds them that it is finally the day in which they can open up the box of wishes they buried 5 years past. Once they found the magic box, they hurry to open it and see what everyone wished for 5 years prior. Starting off with Benjamin, he actually wished to become a knight. Lucky him, his wish became a reality. Then came Duffrey's wish, which was to meet a dragon. Well, in his defense, he was only 10 when he made that wish, right? Then came Viche's to become the prettiest woman in the world. Everyone became hysterical at this, with Duffrey telling her there were limits to a god's power. Ouch! Finally, Jade's wish was for everyone else's wish to come true. Cute, innocent, and wholesome Jade. A few days later, the day of the debutante ball finally came around. Viche wasn't able to see much of anyone since they were all busy with the final preparations. Viche notices how Louis seems so preoccupied with everything, and Jade tells her it's because Louis doesn't want any of the guests, but more specifically, Viche to notice her mother's absence in her debut. Gotta love Louis. Finally, the maid Sophia drags Viche to her chambers to get prepared. After hours of trying on different dresses, Viche's maids finally settle upon a gorgeous, long, sky blue dress for Viche to wear to her ball. Sophia, with teary eyes, hands Viche her late mother's favorite necklace. That's when an elegant Jade enters the dresser, referring to Viche as a goddess. And she can't help but blush. Same, sis. Same. He hands her his arm to hold before they enter the ballroom, when Viche shyly tells Jade he looks handsome. Finally in the ball, it isn't long before Viche becomes exhausted from all the socializing. She tells Jade she will go hide in the garden's balcony for a while. While relaxing alone there with her shoes off, she hears a man walking towards her. Startled, she turns around to see a young man who introduces himself as Felix, the eldest son of Duke Persia. Viche realizes that his face seemed familiar to her, as his father had been the one to execute her in her previous life. Viche is a little bit put off by Felix's presence. I mean, he does remind her of her execution and all. After a moment of courteous socializing, Viche asks him if he intends to leave. Felix replies that he would like to keep her company, and gets closer to her as if to touch her hair. Get away, you creep! Luckily, that's when Jade appears, with eyes as dead as night, and asks them what is happening there. The moment he notices Viche is barefoot, he immediately covers her up with his jacket. A bit protective, but we'll take it. Felix asks him who he is, and once they tell him his full name, Jade Mercian, he snickers as if knowing something, and starts treating him disrespectfully. The tension grows between them as they exchange subtle but piercing insults. When Viche finally decides to put an end to all of this, she tells Felix to behave himself, that Jade is like a brother to her and he has no business disrespecting him in her own mansion. You go, girl. Before he can protest, we see that the crown's prince has arrived, so Felix quickly goes off to kiss the prince's ass. Now alone, Jade helps Viche put on her shoes, wiping an uncomfortable Viche's feet and all. Viche tries in her own artless way to convince Jade to go to rest for a bit, so that she can prevent him from meeting his half-brother and having a bad time. Jade, obviously aware of Viche's intentions, smiles at her and tells her he won't leave her side in her debut, asking her if she wishes to dance with him. They return to the ballroom and begin dancing together, while the guests all start muttering amongst themselves about Jade's striking resemblance with the prince. As they begin dancing, Duffrey from the sidelines notices the prince glancing towards Viche and Jade. After they finish dancing, Viche and Jade go over to the refreshments table when Viche hears a man call her name behind her. Obviously, it was the prince. Turning around and saluting him with Jade beside her, she thanks him for taking the time to come to her ball. She hesitates as she tries to introduce Jade, given the history between the two of them. The prince stops her and tells her it's all right, that they already know each other well. He proceeds to refer to Jade as Viche's cousin. Viche is heartbroken at this, as with this, the prince has finally publicly denied having any sort of connection to Jade, even though all three of them know the truth. Later, when Viche and Jade are all alone, she tells him sternly that he has to become the emperor. This time, it is not a ploy of Viche to have him become the tyrant. This time, she means it, as she is infuriated at the prince for casting out Jade so thoughtlessly. Jade replies that he hasn't the slightest interest in becoming the emperor, as he states the cost of that is far too high. Viche wonders about what Jade might be referring to. She thinks it may be because he knows being an emperor is too time-consuming, and that he would end up losing relationships. But then again, if he does become an emperor, he would be able to meet Cecilia, the saintess who lifted his curse and becomes his one true love. Gloomily, Jade questions Viche as to why she insists so blindly upon him becoming an emperor, telling her it seems as though she would even give her life to see him become one, and, while kissing her hand, he tells her he can't lose her for any reason. Really suspicious, Jade. After the ball is over and once Viche is already in bed, she has the creeping suspicion that Jade knows that she is going to die, that maybe he used his magical abilities to foresee the future. However, in the novel, Jade wasn't supposed to develop these abilities yet, so it's all very confusing for Viche. Viche ends up getting ill after the ball, with a creeping fever. We then see Jade visiting her at night while she's asleep and using magic on her. He seems to have cured her, as the next day she wakes up perfectly healthy. It is then that Louis tells her that her father has suddenly left the mansion to go down to the territory. Viche becomes as pale as a ghost, as she remembers it was this very trip when he went down to the territory where the devil appeared, that her father lost his life in a carriage accident last time around. Viche hurries to try to catch up with the Marquis and save him. She orders Louis to prepare a speedy carriage for her, telling him the Marquis is in danger and that she has to save him. When she goes to her room to prepare a bag for her travels, Duffrey interrupts her, asking her what's going on. In overwhelmed, Viche tells him the same thing she told Louis. That's when Duffrey takes the bag, full of magical weapons, from her and tells her he is going to come with her. Once in the carriage, Duffrey asks Viche how she knew that this would happen. She figures she can't keep lying to him, and so she tells him everything she knows about the future, telling him it is some sort of foreshadowing she has. Duffrey accepts this, but he asks her to tell Jade everything once they return. Suddenly, the carriage is attacked by flying arrows, which miss Viche and Duffrey by inches, and their carriage crashes. It is then we are shown Louis going to inform Jade about Viche's plan to go after the Marquis to save him. Luckily, Duffrey and Viche were ejected from the carriage and landed safely on some grass, even though their driver didn't share the same look. It seems there are 3 criminals surrounding their carriage, and so Duffrey deploys the magical balls Viche brought, making a giant wave appear and dragging the criminals away. It is then Duffrey suggests they might have been assassins, given that they seem to be targeting their lives rather than their possessions. They notice a tower of smoke not far away in the forest, and getting closer, they realize it is the Marquis's carriage. He is surrounded by 4 armed criminals, with most of his guards dead. Viche wonders then if this is what actually happened in the novel, instead of the simple carriage accident, or if her actions have already started changing the flow of events. Her and Duffrey go to help the Marquis, throwing magic fireballs at the assassins. However, things turn around quickly, and the Marquis is hit on the back by a knife. Right in time, as always, Jade appears, and to the amazement of everyone present, he starts using advanced shielding magic and protects everyone from the attack. Once Jade took care of the attackers, he told Duffrey to take a horse and take the Marquis to the closest town, where Duffrey will heal him. Jade then covers Viche's eyes and teleports them somewhere safe. Viche is completely lost, as according to the novel, Jade doesn't develop magic powers until he becomes an adult. But before she gets a chance to ask him, Jade interrupts her and demands her to tell him for how long she knew about the Marquis's accident, about the future. Finally, Viche comes to the realization that Jade must also be from the future, just like her. Still, she's afraid of telling Jade the truth, as she fears the future consequences that may bring. Nonetheless, Viche doesn't even have to open her mouth for Jade to realize she, as him, is from the future. That's when Jade, desperate, takes her by the shoulders and implores her to tell him why she gave up her life for him so easily last time around. If anyone had made her do it, as right before passing she told Jade, "My role ends here." Destroyed, Viche wonders if it was because of that small line that she wasn't able to return to her original world last time around. When questioned about it, Jade admits that he possessed the power to turn back time with magic, and that's how he had been able to go back before everything happened. It is then that Viche understands that she didn't return because she had done something wrong in the events of the novel, but because of Jade. Jade tells Viche she doesn't have to explain herself, as it doesn't matter to him. The only thing that matters is that she's alive, and so, breaking down, he begs her never to leave him again. Completely overwhelmed, he hugs Viche and starts weeping on her shoulder. Worried, Viche tries to help him, but it's no use. He seems to be exhausted from all the magic, and so, he faints. Later on, we see everyone back safely in the mansion. Apparently, Jade became ill after using so much magic, and Viche prayed for him to get better. She then goes to visit her bedridden but living father. He thanks her, but scolds her for doing something so dangerous. Viche is really thankful she was able to save him this time around, even though the flow of the novel has been completely destroyed. This time around, Viche allows herself to feel the warmth of her fictional family. It has been 4 days since the accident, and Jade still hasn't woken up. Duffrey and Benjamin have the idea to host a funeral in honor of the knights and servants that died during the attack, given that the Marquis still hasn't fully recovered. Naturally, Viche has become really upset because of Jade's state. Duffrey and Benjamin talk to Viche and suggest the idea that maybe it had been Durtel Emilian, Viche's uncle, who had ordered the attack on the Marquis. Thinking back, she recalls seeing him at her debutante ball. When she met with the Crown's prince, it had become obvious to everyone present the real relationship between Jade and the prince, even to her uncle. And so, they suspect he sent assassins after his brother, as if it wasn't for Jade, Durtel would be the next in line after the prince to become emperor. Viche deeply blames herself, as she thinks that if she had debuted as in the original novel, without hosting her own ball, none of this would have happened. Sweetly noticing her anguish, Duffrey contains her. It seems he's really stepped up after all. We then see Viche sitting beside Jade's bed, keeping his sleeping body company. The doctor says they didn't know when he would wake up, as he has fallen into a coma after overusing his magical abilities. However, as Viche was resting beside him, we see him finally awaken. As he wakes up, Jade hears a dark voice scolding him, calling him a foolish child and telling him he has stolen from him. That's when Viche wakes up and starts to well up when seeing that Jade has finally woken up. Jade tells her that he doesn't hold her accountable for anything, for sacrificing herself for him and leaving him behind. And with dazzling amethyst eyes, he tells her that he only cares that she is alive. I could just melt. Viche then interrogates him about his use of his magical abilities, as it must have taken a lot of magic to be able to turn back time. She asks him whether he has already begun to become crazy because of the Imperial family's curse, and what is the price he has to pay for the use of his magic. Jade replies that he doesn't know, and so Viche, extremely worried about him, begs him never to use his magic again. Jade then assures her that it doesn't matter, and that he doesn't regret his decision at all, as because of it, Viche is alive again. Finally, Jade asks Viche to tell him about the memories she has about the previous timeline. Viche asks him why this, all of a sudden, and he confides that he has been hearing this dark voice calling out to him in his dreams, the same voice he heard as he woke up, and he doesn't know for how much longer he will be able to maintain his sanity. Desperate, Viche tries to convince him to go to the Divine Temple with her, to save him. But even if they did, it would be useless, as the saintess would only appear 5 years later, when they turned 20. We are now met with a sleeping Viche, resting her head upon Jade's lap back in his chambers in the mansion. We see now that apparently, Jade has been suffering from sporadic bursts of magic, which he isn't able to control. That's why the Grand Duke Kufmel, Jade's uncle, finally arrives. Remember, Jade wrote him a letter a while back asking him to be his magic tutor. Apparently, in his letter, Jade told the Duke that he came back, and so Jade is flooded with questions related to his magical abilities from his uncle. It seems like Jade thinks the Duke can help him improve his health conditions with his magical abilities. Let's not forget that the Imperial family's magic comes at a high cost, their sanity. And so the sheer amount of magic Jade has already used puts him at high risk. The Duke also offers to help him be able to control the outbursts of magic. Even so, he says they should hurry back to the Duke's castle, as he isn't sure how much time Jade has left. And so, they leave hurriedly, in the middle of the night. Jade doesn't even try to wake Viche up to say goodbye. He may be a tyrant, but he sure does hold a soft spot for her. Next morning rolls over, and Viche is confused and devastated as she finds out Jade left to go to the Duke's castle without even saying goodbye. However, she does understand the need for this. She knows the Duke is the only one who can actually help Jade, so she is glad about that, but understandably, she's extremely sad about Jade's departure. After Jade's departure, everyone at the Marquis's estate devoted their time to trying to figure out who hired the assassins that had attacked him. They weren't able to get very far. They only had personal assumptions to go with. But after some time, notice came that Viche's uncle, Durtel Amelia, was found murdered in his house. A letter detailing his secret embezzlement of funds for personal use was found near his corpse, and eyewitnesses said that they saw 2 black-haired men carrying out the murder. Viche wonders if maybe one of the assassins had been Jade, given that they had some suspicions of Durtel's involvement in the Marquis's assassination attempt. 4 years passed. Viche is now 19, and in all that time, she never received any letter from Jade. She seems to have developed the routine of going to Losis's temple daily, praying for a letter from Jade and benefiting from the temple's daily free lunch service. Gotta love free food. I get you, sis. Nevertheless, she also has a secret ulterior motive for being there. She hopes to be able to finally meet the saintess Cecilia, who in the original novel was able to cure Jade's curse, so as to be able to help Jade meet her as well. In the temple, she also met Priest Michel, the highest-ranking priest of the Empire with the strongest holy powers. In the original novel, he's Jade's antagonist, but, in the original novel, Jade also destroyed the temple, so... Viche and the priest eventually become really good friends. We are also shown that Duffrey finally became a priest. Viche brought a book to the temple to take to Duffrey, titled The Marquis's Indecent Night. She's just like one of us. Apparently, Duffrey is also a big fan of the author, and becomes elated when he sees what Viche brought him. Even though he has become a priest, we see even he can't resist a good romance novel. The author would release a new book with a signing the next morning, and so Duffrey begs Viche to go and buy him the book, as he would be busy with temple work. And so Viche wakes up early the next day and goes to the bookstore to queue for the book release before it even opens. She was actually just looking to get the book for herself. Poor Duffrey. While in line, she meets a dark-haired woman that's queuing right behind her. Suspiciously enough, she has the same hairstyle as the one that the saintess has been shown to wear. Once they already get the books, the woman behind Viche trips up, and instead of holding onto her, Viche's reflex was to save the book from falling. Priorities, girl. Even so, when that happens, she notices a piece of paper with a unique yellow flower printed on it fall onto the ground. Viche seems to recognize it from somewhere, and so she asks the woman if they could meet to talk. We now see that the woman was in fact Cecilia, the saintess who would later on save Jade from his curse and become his true love. Surprisingly enough, she seems to be a huge fan of the author of the romance novels Viche and Duffrey are obsessed with. And so, Viche is extremely surprised and confused at meeting her in the bookstore rather than in the temple. Viche is exasperated, as the more she talks to Cecilia, the more she comes to realize this Cecilia is nothing like the Cecilia in the original novel. This Cecilia is obsessed with romance novels and can't stop talking about them. But Viche envisioned Cecilia, a saintess, to be more innocent, pure, and less open-minded. Personally, this Cecilia seems way more fun, but I get Viche's disappointment, as nothing seems to be going according to the original novel's plot. Viche then resolves to change this Cecilia's personality. As subtle as always, she then takes her to the temple where Cecilia tells Viche she had never been there. It made sense, given that in the original novel, she didn't find out that she had divine powers until she turned 20. Once they enter the temple, Cecilia can't stop talking about how handsome all of the priests look, and how she had seen the temple and some of the priests in a picture book about handsome men before. She becomes extremely shy and goes to hide behind a column when she meets Duffrey, as she has seen him in that same picture book before and found him extremely attractive. You can imagine Viche's irritation at this turn of events. Cecilia seems to be infatuated by Duffrey, telling Viche he is so handsome he makes her heart flutter and all. While they're having lunch together, Viche suggests that Cecilia takes the divine power test. It seems that it is a standard test everyone in the city takes as a child, but being that Cecilia grew up in a small village, she never had the chance. When she takes the test, a strong beam of golden light floods the room. As expected by Viche, Cecilia's divine power is extremely strong. So strong even, that priest Michel hurries to call the Pope, who immediately runs over to witness Cecilia's power in person. Finally, things are starting to go according to the novel. Cecilia has been finally discovered as the saintess who would save the empire, according to a prophecy the Pope had received from the oracle. Now Viche has nothing to do but wait for Jade's return. This is when we see the Marquis receive a letter from Grand Duke Kaufmel, which he proceeds to burn. Viche barges into the Marquis's room and demands to know what the contents of the letter were. However, the Marquis grabs her by the shoulders and forbids her from ever going back into his room or talking about the letter without giving any further explanation. Some days later, Viche goes to the temple to help priest Michel with something. She has the idea of running away from her house to go meet Jade at the Grand Duke's castle on her own, as she can't keep on without knowing if Jade's okay or not. While she's thinking about that, priest Michel approaches her and asks her to meet Cecilia, as she has been wanting to see her for a while now. Once they meet, Cecilia grabs Viche by the arm and takes her somewhere separate from the priests. She tells Viche that she's become extremely busy now that she's a saintess, and she was worried she wouldn't be able to go on to the signing of the new romance novel that would happen the next morning. We get you, girl. Viche feels a little bit guilty, as in fact, she made Cecilia become a saintess much earlier than the novel had intended. And so she comes up with the idea to get Cecilia out of the temple secretly to be able to go together the next day to the book signing. Next morning rolls over and we see an excited Viche and Cecilia waiting in line for the bookstore to open. That's when, suddenly, they see an army of men appear before them. They realize the army of men is not the Imperial Guard, and it's too big to be the army of only one family. They notice they are heading straight for the Imperial Palace. Viche wonders if this is the beginning of the war she already knew about from the novel, but it will be starting much, much earlier than expected. Suddenly, Duffrey appears in a carriage and hurries both Viche and Cecilia inside. While returning to the temple, Duffrey scolds them for escaping the temple. Viche asks him what is going on, and he informs them that the Emperor is dead and the royal palace is now in strict lockdown. Viche, surprised, asks Duffrey to take her home. Once there, she demands to see her father. Louis tells her he is in a meeting, but dauntless Viche doesn't care. She marches right into his chambers, when she finds that he was actually meeting with the Grand Duke himself. Viche figures the letter her father burnt some days prior and the Emperor's death must be linked. The Grand Duke leaves once Viche arrives, telling the Marquis to reconsider his offer. Once he is gone, Viche asks her father what is going on. He tries telling her that the Emperor was sick, but she knows better, and asks him if it was Jade. She sees from the Marquis's look that Jade had something to do with the Emperor's death. Nothing is said explicitly, but she comes to the conclusion that even though he told her he didn't want to be Emperor, once again in this lifetime, he murdered the Emperor to claim the throne for himself. Duffrey is taking Cecilia back to the temple to keep her safe, when he meets Benjamin, a full-on knight now, who comes carrying letters from the royal family. Now at night, Viche wonders in her room why Jade repeated history again, even though he was different from last time around. She has so many questions, but even she realizes that they can only be answered by Jade himself. While she is imagining what Jade must look like now from her balcony, she thinks she actually saw his figure in the gardens. She hurries out to look for him, and, once in the garden, feels the strong embrace of Jade from behind her, telling her he missed her a lot. I'm melting right now. Melting. While holding her from behind, Jade tells Viche how much he missed her. Every part of her. I would die if I were Viche. Viche breaks down crying, scolding Jade for not even once writing to her. She asks him about his health problems, if they have improved, and he tells her he wouldn't come to her if he were dying. Infuriated, Viche tells him he should come to her in that case, even more so. Maybe she doesn't know it yet, but she is clearly harboring some strong feelings for Jade over there. She finally asks him about the Emperor, but most importantly, about the Crown's Prince. Apparently, Jade doesn't know how the prince is. At Viche's surprised face, Jade tells her he is not the same sweet Jade she used to know, that Jade died when she did in her previous lifetime. Whatever that means. We see now a seriously jacked off, shirtless, and injured Jade suddenly being woken up by a knocking door. It's Duke Kafmel, who then enters Jade's chambers. They are apparently stationed in an army camp, and this is a memory of Jade's life after Viche died in the first rundown of events. It has been 2 years since Viche's death. Jade is now emperor and is waging war upon the neighboring countries. And Grand Duke Kafmel has gone to meet Jade to tell him about the magic that would eventually allow Jade to turn back time. The Grand Duke gives Jade an amulet in the form of a necklace pendant, and before Jade departs to the past, the Duke tells him to remind his past self how he came up with that time-traveling method. Jade is able to time travel just in time, as his camp had just gotten raided by enemy troops. This method is not very reliable, as he has little to no control on where he will pop up. Apparently, the first time he tried it, he ended up appearing right before Viche's execution. He hurries to the terrace where she is killed, but some guards intercede him right before he's able to stop Viche from admitting to the murder of the Emperor, which in fact, he had committed. Poor Jade. He ended up having to witness Viche's execution twice instead of being able to save her. While he was grieving Viche beside her resting place, Grand Duke Kafmel appears before him. Let's remember that this is the Grand Duke of the past, but Jade begs him to help him time travel once more. He tells the Duke about how he helped him time travel before, and given that Jade has already done it once before and it took a huge toll on his powers, the Duke warns him that doing it a second time might kill him. Finally, this second attempt works, and Jade wakes up as his 10-year-old self, back in the Marquis's castle when our story began. Back in the present, Viche is still confused with Jade's words. She wonders then what kind of Jade he is now. Jade assures her that now he will do anything, give anything up to protect her. Viche finally understands Jade's motivations. She sees now that everything Jade has done up until now has been to prevent her from getting involved in the war, from getting her killed. Even so, Viche still worries about him and about his health. She wonders if he lived long enough after her execution so as to meet Cecilia. Jade tells Viche not to worry about him. He can't cure the curse, but he assures her he can control it. It is not enough for Viche. With a fierce look in her eyes, she is determined to help save Jade. She has found the saintess Cecilia after all. He asks Viche to wait for him. In a few days' time, he says he will pick her up from her home. Jade is apparently residing in the Imperial Palace along with Benjamin, who seems to have become his own personal knight. Benjamin asks Jade what he intends to do with the prince, to which Jade replies to let him live. Benjamin warns him on the dangers this decision entails, but Jade is convinced that this is the way to go. Benjamin also asks him why he hasn't killed Duke Persia, the one who had executed Viche last time around, as him and his faction originally supported the crown's prince enthronement rather than Jade's. Jade wants to keep him alive, as he states that he still has a debt to him. We are then shown that Viche receives a letter from Cecilia asking for help. It seems that the ceremony for Cecilia's presentation as a goddess has been postponed due to the confusing political climate of the empire. They have decided to postpone it until after the emperor's coronation. However, this is not what is worrying Cecilia. In fact, she is worried because she has received a letter from the castle asking her to meet with the new emperor. In Viche's mind, Jade. Cecilia has heard all of the rumors surrounding the new emperor about how he is barbaric and vicious, and is worried he might want to kill her. Viche, however, insists they are just rumors. She confides in Cecilia, telling her that he is actually a childhood friend of hers and that he is one of the nicest persons she knows, adding that he is quite handsome as well. Gotta give it to her, Viche really is trying to get the original flow of the novel going again. Later on, the day of the coronation arrives. Both Viche and Cecilia are there. Cecilia seems to be a bit uneasy still, nervous about all of the high-ranking people present. However, Viche reassures her that the priests and even the gods themselves will protect her. The ceremony begins, and Jade comes up to the Pope to receive the crown. The atmosphere is quite tense amongst the guests, and Jade's face is as cold as ice while sitting on the throne. Duffrey comes up to the girls and tells them it's time for them to meet the Emperor, both Cecilia and Viche. Viche is quite surprised to be told to go meet the Emperor as well, as she thought this was supposed to be a church meets new emperor type of deal. However, she is informed it was because Cecilia requested it, as she was too afraid to go alone. Once in the meeting hall, the Grand Duke and Priest Michel seem to start talking about the relationship between church and estate. The Duke seems to think they get along well, while the priest is still hesitant regarding the true motives of the new monarch. That's when Jade appears, and leaving all formalities aside, grabs Viche's shoulders from behind and ushers her to her seat, while everyone is dumbstruck at the informality of their relationship. Everything seems to go down very cordially. However, Viche's plans to get Jade and Cecilia together don't seem to be flowing as smoothly, as they don't seem to look at each other, not even once. After Jade leaves, Viche catches a glimpse of Benjamin. That's when she finds out that he has actually become a royal guard, and with a fiery look, threatens both Benjamin and Duffrey for not having told her about Jade's location before, seeing as they knew from a long time ago because of their positions. Well, they're still cousins after all. It is then that we find out that Benjamin has been following the Duke since he was 17 and has been part of the rebellion all along, even though he never told Viche, nor anyone else. When Benjamin was 17 years old, Duke Catmel called him that day to prepare for the Royal Cavalry exam. He rushed straight to the Grand Duke's residence to find out what was going on. When he arrived, all he saw was Jade calmly preparing in the hallway, which he didn't expect. Finally, a mission to support Jade in the rebellion and make him the new king is what he thinks. Presently, after hearing Benjamin's story, Viche thinks that it's a business fraud. She then thinks about the situation in the kingdom and if the salary of the Knight Squad is high. After concluding that Jade is Benjamin's boss, his face seems to contort a bit, and there is a rapid change in the atmosphere. Speaking of which, Jade comes up to them to see if they're talking badly about him. Shortly, Jade invites Viche to go see the garden. Even though that day is the day he takes the throne, he always has time to have a cup of tea with her. She then accepts his invitation and proceeds to go to the garden while holding each other's hands. Viche looks around the garden and thinks that the palace has changed. Out of the blue, she asks how Jade feels about Cecil. At first, he doesn't recognize who Cecil is, so Viche introduces her. How come he doesn't know her? They were just in the same place earlier. Cecil is very beautiful, just like a goddess. Viche adds some facts about her, like how good her personality is, how she loves to read, and her favorite food. Now that she keeps talking about Cecil, Jade asks Viche some facts about herself this time. Come to think of it, both the girls are pretty similar, even in taste. That proves that they are really close. In addition, they have the same sleeping habits. Having to wake early in the morning is torture for Viche. Thus, Jade suggests she move into the palace to live. That way, it is more convenient for Viche since she doesn't have to worry about anything. Meanwhile, Cecil is being informed that she will be temporarily staying at the palace since the king needs her mental health support. She then starts to worry a little, especially about the new emperor because, admittedly, she doesn't like him. Jade is serious about inviting Viche to live in the royal palace. He is willing to adjust some things to make it more convenient for her. She wonders why he just casually invites anyone to live in his house. Maybe because of how big the palace is, he feels lonely sometimes? The truth is, living in the palace is just a bit too much for him. Afterward, Viche reminds him once again to treat Cecil nicely because she will be entering the palace sooner or later, but he's not paying attention. Momentarily, Jade wipes something off her face, which makes her blush. Flashback to a few days after the coronation, Cecil has moved into the palace. Also, it seemed like Duke Catmail immediately asked Cecil to test the divine power. Presently, Viche thinks that the purpose of the test is to break Jade's curse. While looking at the paper, she feels like she's experiencing déjà vu. She's having second thoughts about whether to comfort her for once. When the girls finally meet, Cecil cries about how much she hates the palace. She rants about how cold the king is and such, that she already wants to get out of the place. Viche calms her down as she invites her to go for a walk. At the garden, Cecil expresses how scared she is to disappoint Jade. It's because she thinks too much. Poor Cecil, it really is a pitiful situation. Moreover, Cecil feels really lonely in the palace compared to the temple. The other priests are not called into the palace so that the secrets about the place won't be revealed outside. She then asks Viche to stay in the palace with her. At least, it will make her life bearable. However, the palace is not a place where anyone can live. And even though Viche and Jade are childhood friends, she doesn't think that they are close. Speaking of the Emperor, Jade appears suddenly and interrupts their conversation, which scares the girls. Oh no, he must have been offended by what she said. Jade repeats Viche's words. She worries that he might have also heard everything. He then asks again about her moving into the palace. Viche takes his question as a sign that he heard everything she said earlier, afraid that it would make their relationship even worse. Momentarily, Jade mentions someone insulting the royal family will be imprisoned for how many years, which Viche thinks is a threat. If she doesn't move into the palace, he will make Cecil confess to insulting the royal family. In Viche's defense, she is scared that she will get scolded for going to a place where she doesn't belong. However, that doesn't matter because of Jade's presence. By the looks of it, Cecil finds his attitude menacing and indescribably evil. At this rate, there will probably be a second war in the palace because there is no peace between the two. Afterward, Viche decides to move into the palace, which makes Cecil really happy and Jade satisfied. Seeing both of them happy with her decision makes them look like a two-member scam band. That is the only time that the two of them are compatible. Shortly, Cecil receives a call from the Grand Duke. She then excuses herself after reminding Viche to come as soon as possible. Now Viche and Jade are left alone together. She notices that he is very happy, and that is because for the first time, he is satisfied with Cecil. He says that she only listens to her and not him, to which he concludes that Viche likes Cecil more than him. She denies it and laughs as she is aware that he is obviously using the "are you closer to that person or me" trick. Classic. When Viche moves into the palace, she is surprised by how huge the whole place is. Everything is so thoroughly prepared. She roams around with an unbelievable look on her face. Later on, she lies on her bed, wondering how she should have been a dead character a long time ago if it weren't for Jade's magic power. Being new to the palace, she doesn't know what she has to do to live there. First of all, Viche decides to finish her plan to be a Cupid. She then goes to Cecil's room. However, she gets lost because of how big the place is, especially since there's no one walking around she could ask directions for. While roaming around, she finds Benjamin, who is surprised by her presence. He doesn't know that she just started to live there today. She hears a scream inside the room that seems like he's guarding. Viche says that she is lost and asks for Jade's whereabouts. Speaking of, he gets out of the room just in time. After hearing that she lost her way, Jade holds out his hand and tells her to go with him. However, Viche sees blood on his hand. Viche worriedly asks if Jade is alright after seeing his hand full of blood. She further floods him with questions. It seems that she's the only one who is bothered, since for them, it's not a big deal. What really happened to his hand? We wonder. Quickly, she brings him to the room. On the way, they pass by ministers having a serious conversation and get startled as soon as they see Viche and Jade. She is curious about their reaction, but Jade dismisses it right away, and they proceed to the room. When they arrive in the room, Jade admits that he is in so much pain, but looking at his devious face, he's not hurt at all. However, he does vomit sometimes. Viche checks to see his temperature. He doesn't have a fever, but he says that his heart hurts. If she's worried about him, then he will be fine. Even at this point, he is still in the mood to joke around. Moments later, Jade asks what she wants to do in the palace. She actually just wants to go for a walk, but it will take days if she wants to walk through the entire place. She teases that she probably can't drag him along because he's too weak. Not long after, Cecil suddenly enters the room with a worried look. She immediately hugs Viche, afraid that she'll be hurt. Jade calls her out for entering his room without knocking, but in her defense, it's an emergency. As usual, Jade and Cecil argue for a while. At this rate, Viche doesn't know if Cecil is afraid of him or not. Afterwards, the girls decide to leave him alone to rest since he is not feeling well. By the way, the Imperial Doctor will come soon. He tries to call out Viche, but Cecil lugs her outside the room. During dinner, Cecil tells Viche that she can't be with the devil. The servants perceive her as a demon dressed as an angel. She overthinks that maybe the bad guys will say that she's a bad person. Viche assures her that Jade is not that kind of person and that maybe she misunderstands something. It is like the two of them are cat and mouse because they are always fighting. Also, Cecil informs her that the ministers have been eliminated. Viche believes that it usually happens when a new dynasty begins and that Jade will be like that soon too. However, Cecil is scared that if she can't use the magic, his face will be as black as coal. She thinks that he is an evil man and no one likes the Emperor in this palace. Shortly, she gets startled by Jade's sudden presence. It seems like he heard what she just said. Jade then says something that makes Cecil feel threatened. No matter how much Jade warns Cecil, she doesn't seem to care. The boys interrupt the girls' dinner. Dupree and Benjamin's excuse is because of business. Viche tells them that they are still having a meal, but Cecil announces that she has already done eating. Afterward, Dupree and Cecil bid their goodbyes after talking about business. Her expression when talking to Jade and Dupree is so different. Meanwhile, Viche notices that Benjamin is wearing an officer's clothes, not his knight's uniform. Actually, he's now an assistant and not a knight anymore. Jade suddenly gets some food from the table. He feels like it is delicious just because Viche is eating it. She reminds him to eat well, especially because he's patient. For him, he'd be very happy to do so if he could get to eat with her every day. Later that night, Jade and Viche decide to go for a walk outside. He brings her somewhere with a great view of the palace. She randomly asks him about celebrating welcome balls. He is not really that fond of it, but she encourages him to celebrate it. She then recommends Cecil as his partner, but his attitude suddenly changes. Viche reminds him to be nice to her. He agrees, but he doesn't seem sincere. She says that they should become close and break the curse too. Jade holds her hand as he asks why she thinks that way. It's because she stood next to Cecil when she received a commission before. He then shares that His Highness is testing if he can use divine power to limit magic power, and because they are different, he thinks that the stronger one can repel the other. Shortly, Viche notices a cherry blossom. It is a tree at the Amelian mansion. That is why she feels something familiar. She remembers something from the past after seeing it. He then tells her to visit it if she misses home. Cluelessly, she says that she can easily just go home because she is just temporarily staying at the palace. She then realizes that no one knows where she is staying, so she considers finding a job there. Viche is now of age to earn money, but instead, she is just roaming around, so how can she get married? Jade is willing to prepare a good position for her, which makes her excited. But as soon as she hears what the position is, she's taken aback. Jade offers Viche the position of Empress, a position that not only satisfies the salary she is talking about, but also helps her not to be worried about getting married. She thinks that he is just talking nonsense. However, he is actually being serious. If that is the case, then Viche is fully qualified to be a queen since she is a duke lady after all. But their relationship does not fit with it. Cecil, Jade, and she are best friends. In addition, marriage is not just about being close. It should be with someone they truly love. If a relationship is between two people who love each other, then he thinks that it is possible for them to work out. He then comes closer to her, and when he tries to hold her hands, she gets surprised and immediately steps back. Lately, Viche is getting used to Jade holding her hands tightly or touching her hair or face, but this time, she feels nervous. If you're nervous, honey, about holding hands with him, we volunteer as tribute. Also, they grew up together like siblings. Back then, Viche used to be a naughty kid, so she always thinks that Jade is taking care of her. The fact is that she is getting used to his touch more than anything else, but she couldn't understand why she gets jumpy. Shortly, Jade decides that it's time for them to go home. She then agrees and hurries to go back. Her feelings are so strange, and her heart is thumping, which she cannot understand. Both of them part ways as soon as they arrive back home. For Viche, with her thoughts consuming her, she believes that Jade risked his life for her. Meanwhile, Jade murmurs about them being just friends. Benjamin cannot hear what he is saying, so he proceeds to give a letter to Jade. He shares about how Viche has an introductory party before, but never communicated with any nobles. All this time, she just comes by the temple like a routine. In addition, she is getting closer to Cecil lately. Thus, Benjamin concludes that Jade only called Viche into the palace before just because he was afraid of danger. As Jade is reading the letter, he realizes that the one pulling a thread has given her the role. To elaborate, when he invited Viche to move into the palace before, she didn't come. But when Cecil asked her, she came to the palace right away. The girls are simply close to each other. He then asks Benjamin to try to investigate Cecil and the mandate. It seems like she is plotting something. At times like this, he needs to do what he has learned, and one thing that he learns best from Viche is brainwashing. The next morning, Cecil calls out to Viche to inform her that there's going to be a prom and that they have to get ready. It's about time for the gala, and they should start preparing for it. Later on, the girls are in the carriage on the way to buy things for the gala. They talk about how excited they are for the event, especially Cecil, because it's her first time to join one since birth. After all, the ceremony at the temple was called off earlier, and the reason behind it is Jade. He wishes to go with them as well, but there's a whole lot of paperwork for him. Jade is quite persistent, but Benjamin suggests sending knights to follow the girls and keep them safe. After they decide to look for jewelry first, Cecil asks about what happened between Viche and Jade yesterday. She is too embarrassed to tell what happened, so she shares a story instead. Cecil doesn't have a clue that the story is actually about Viche and Jade. She just happily listens to it. Momentarily, they arrive at the jewelry store nearby. Before getting down, Cecil thinks that Jade has feelings for Viche. However, she still doesn't realize her feelings for him. She is actually not that naive after all. The head knight tells the girls to blow the whistle to call them immediately if something ever happens. Afterward, they proceed into the store. A ruby necklace catches their attention. However, Cecil thinks it's too much, but Viche reminds her that they will be using Jade's money, which he gifted himself. In the end, they buy whatever necklace they want. Now it is time to buy clothes. As soon as they head outside, a deserted alley welcomes them. They find it weird, so they decide to go back inside, but the store suddenly disappears. Not long after, a bunch of men appear out of the blue. They are targeting Cecil, but Viche bravely stands in front of her. As soon as they try to escape, the men start attacking them and chasing Cecil. However, Viche tries to distract the guy so Cecil can escape. When she's about to get attacked, a red-haired guy defends her. It seems like he's a soldier because of his sword hanging from his waist. When she is assured that he's not an enemy, she grabs his coat as she tries to ask for help. Viche only remembers the whistle later on. She hugs the red-haired guy's legs, but he orders her to let it go if she wants to be saved. The bad guys start to go away since the knights are coming. Now, Viche feels finally safe. She then thanks the soldier who saved her earlier. In addition, she asks for a surname to reward him for saving her. However, the soldier refuses to accept any reward since it's not a big deal for him. Actually, she's interested in knowing his identity. Because of his exotic and impressive appearance, it seems like he's not an ordinary person. His only advice to her is to give the bad guys what they want. It's the fastest way to survive. Not long after, the knights finally come. Cecil keeps sobbing after they part ways. Viche tells everyone that she managed to escape thanks to a soldier. They are just glad that she's back safely. After hearing the news, Jade immediately runs as soon as Viche is back at the palace. He is so worried because after only being gone for an hour, her life is already in danger. She then cries, so he hugs her tightly. Oh, to have someone comfort you like this on sad days. We're jealous. The next time she wants to go somewhere, he will accompany her. He is even willing to give up being an emperor just so he can give Viche his full attention. He then grabs her hand and brings her inside the palace. Everyone's eyes are on them, including Cecil, but Jade doesn't seem to care. Now that Viche is alone in her room, she tries to remember whoever wants to target Cecil. Also, who was the man who saved her earlier? Momentarily, Jade visits her room late at night. Viche wonders what's wrong for Jade to visit her that late at night. He just wants to check on her because he feels like she's experiencing anxiety. She then lets him into her room. To distract her from her anxious thoughts, he reads a fairy tale for her. Back then, when they were young, Jade read fairy tales to Viche until midnight every time there was thunder. She finds warmth and peace in his voice. As Jade brushes her hair, she asks how he feels about being an emperor and the future. He notices that she's thinking about a lot of things that day. She is afraid that she has been a bad influence on Jade and Cecil. Momentarily, Viche asks him if he's already visited Cecil, which leads him to ask her why she always tries to associate him with the Holy Maiden. Her excuse is that she thinks they're a great couple. Jade thinks that it's ridiculous, especially when she mentions finding a match to marry him. He then asks her what she thinks about how he sees her, and all her answers are wrong. In fact, his feelings for Viche are actually not just friendship or family love. Consequently, he confesses his love for her, as a man. She doesn't believe him at all, but he is actually dead serious, so if she doesn't want to insult his feelings, then she should stop associating him with Cecil. He is now so close to her, and because of his awkwardness, Viche can't stop talking. She's even pursing her lips. He doesn't know what to do to make her stop talking. But later on, he gives her a goodnight kiss. How sweet. Viche surrenders herself to the imminent goodnight kiss, closing her eyes as Jade's words linger in the air. Like, how can she be so innocent? The proclamation of love seems ineffective against the oblivious Viche, or so we thought. Viche appears determined to invalidate the clear message Jade is trying to convey. Jade whispers to Viche, saying that there is no tension between family members like what they're having right now. Oh my, that was kind of hot? Viche can't help but feel estranged from the man in front of her, whom she thought she understood well, or so she thought. Viche has noticed it for days when Jade hugged and cried on her shoulders whenever he came home, and even hugged her back under the cherry tree. Viche feels from then on that their relationship has a different meaning, but the thought of being romantically linked with her childhood friend must have been clouded by their years of friendship. Jade now tells the nervous Viche that if she keeps on pretending not to know, then his intentions will get interesting. Like, this isn't getting interesting enough for these two. Viche thinks, when did little Jade become a man? Jade tells her to get used to it. She's surprised by the man in front of her and what he said a while ago. Unbothered, like nothing happened, Jade asks if he can now read her the fairy tales. Shortly after, a seemingly happy Jade caught Benjamin's attention, and he didn't even need to ask since we all know who it was for, because of his sister. Jade mysteriously asks if he has now found out who was behind the previous attack because killing him is not good enough for what he did. Meanwhile, the saintess checks on Viche. Becoming a saint not long ago, she had to worry about all the dangers around her and probably felt guilty when she was dragged into that danger. She thinks she didn't fulfill her duty as a saintess. Viche, amazed by her holiness, assures her that she's not at fault. The person behind yesterday's incident will be laid bare soon. As Viche remembers the original novel, the villains are in the middle of the story. Partly are aristocrats who will betray to bring down Jade. So Viche offers Cecil a walk, knowing that there will be no danger in the meantime, when suddenly another danger approaches. It's Jade. Viche recalls what happened the night before and tries to run away from Jade. A lot had happened yesterday, so Viche did not have time to think. I would too if I were Viche. Being kidnapped and confessed on the same day is a roller coaster ride and a hard time to process. Viche realizes that if she lets Jade like her instead of Cecil, she'll become a barrier to breaking the curse for Jade. Meanwhile, that night, the infamous princess of Nerpasa is looking out the window, waiting for a letter from Taranto. But since nothing came, she will come there herself. Knowing that Viche can't hide from Jade forever, at dinner, nervous and awkward Viche shamelessly denies her avoidance from Jade a while ago. Viche, you're totally embarrassed. Look at those blushing cheeks. But the way she responds, she seems careful today around Jade, wondering whether last night was a dream or what. She unconsciously stares at Jade, but her thoughts are suddenly interrupted as Jade calls her out for paying attention to him for quite some time. Viche wonders why Jade is acting like nothing happened when suddenly, Jade asks for an answer to his confession last night. Viche was startled by the sudden, direct, and embarrassing question without even blinking his eyes. Having fun with the situation, the maids are shocked when a smile from His Majesty the Emperor appears like a moon that appears once in a million years. Our Emperor is too in love. Oh, so cute. But Viche ends up asking Jade to take Cecil to the welcome ball instead of answering his confession. Saddened by Viche's response, Jade still does as Viche pleases, with a condition that she shouldn't hide from him like before. Shortly after in his office, Jade remembers the time when Viche tried to distance herself from him before, drawing boundaries for years. Now, Jade's deep thought is interrupted when Benjamin arrives with news about an uninvited guest who will be visiting the Empire. But Jade is rather interested in the purpose of their visit. Meanwhile, the mighty savior of Viche, who accidentally saved her before from the magicians, looks rather serious when suddenly an urgent matter comes at hand. It seems like the princess is looking for him. The night of the welcome ball comes, and the palace is slowly filled up with dashing and elegant guests. The beautiful Viche appears in her floral pink gown with Dupree as her escort for the ball. After knowing the reason why he's her cousin's escort, Dupree looks so done with this and feels sorry for Jade because of his cousin's silly decisions. Suddenly, they encounter Sir Michel, wondering why he is there instead of in the temple. The high priest tells Viche he attends for business reasons. Based on the recent happenings, Viche thought he might be here to guard Cecil. Viche feels sorry for playing around while the people in the temple are working, but instead of her, the priest Dupree is the only one guilty of the charge. Well, Viche is actually to blame. Poor Dupree, he's afraid of getting demoted. At the time, the Emperor Jade enters with Cecil hand in hand as everyone bows as a sign of respect. Viche sees a stiff and emotionless Jade depicting that of an emperor. Watching from the balcony of the room, just a swift of the hand from the Emperor, the music fills the room and the dance floor is filled with people. Viche looks up at the balcony, thinking Jade and Cecil look good together. Meanwhile, Cecil asks Jade the true reason why he chose her as his partner. She then further adds that his plan to provoke jealousy in Lady Viche is childish. As Cecil asks Jade about Lady Viche's feelings, Jade quickly says Viche loves him like it was said to him a few times. I love the confidence, Jade. On the other side, Viche bids her goodbye to Dupree, thinking that there is nothing left to do other than walk around or sleep inside the palace. As Viche walks in the dark, she immediately regrets leaving Dupree behind. She notices a familiar jacket in the dark, the Emperor's coat. Cecil's annoyance grows as she observes Jade's overly confident demeanor. But the moment she closes her eyes for a second, Jade is no longer sitting on his throne. In search of Viche, Jade is suddenly seized by a throbbing pain, a reminder that time is running out. Seated, Jade gasps for air, attempting to calm his convulsing body. He realizes the limitations of the priestess's willpower and finds solace as Viche emerges in the darkness, a beacon of comfort. Concerned, Viche questions why Jade is there, imagining Cecil's likely anger. However, as she witnesses Jade's cold sweat, pale face, and labored breath, her worry deepens, and she earnestly asks how she can help. Jade, in pain, only requests her presence, even if just for a moment. The burdens of kingship have pushed Jade to the brink. He endures silent suffering in the cold, dark solitude, unable to express his pain, bitter and tragically alone. As Viche holds him, she recognizes her powerlessness. Only Cecil can prevent the evil power from escaping Jade. Though she suggests asking Cecil's aid, Jade counters by asking if she wants him to go to Cecil. Viche, unable to answer, grapples with the image of the two together from earlier. Is that a hint of jealousy, Viche? Jade implores her not to go, emphasizing his need to be by her side to breathe. In Viche's mind, Jade's familiarity is both comforting and stifling. He's her childhood friend, making it hard to escape his embrace. As the night deepens, Viche, wrestling with her emotions, asks Jade if he regrets confessing his love, fearing their relationship has irreversibly changed. Jade admits to regretting it, catching Viche off guard. However, he clarifies that his true regret lies in not confessing sooner, playfully teasing Viche with a fake laugh. Curious about when Jade's feelings began, Viche is left speechless as he confesses to loving her since the moment of his death. They share a meaningful gaze, and Jade wishes for the moment to linger, pretending he's unaffected despite the pain he's enduring. Awkwardly slipping out of the hug, Viche awaits Jade's revelation. To her surprise, he compliments her, claiming she looks stunning tonight. Viche's heart races uncontrollably, realizing that Jade, the one who hurt her heart, now has hers fluttering. Days pass, and Viche stays at the palace. Knowing her mission is complete, she contemplates slipping back home, convinced that Jade's heart won't be the one causing a stir. It'll be hers. Suddenly, the news of the delegates from the kingdom of Napasa and their princess, Cecil's love rival, rattles Viche. This unexpected twist complicates her plans to alter the course of the original plot. Standing far from the crowd, Viche peeks to see the beauty of the infamous princess, even though she's the love rival that used to endanger Cecil. Trying so hard to hear and see the distinguished guest, she finds her way out, making her crawl like some weirdo when she notices she's blocking someone's way. She composes herself and tells the man to come inside, but he's weirdly staring too much at her. That's when she notices that the man seems familiar. Meanwhile, the princess arrives with a cunning smile, parading her gorge hair. But still, I'm having a bad omen with this one. Jade uninterestedly asks her what is so important that the princess has to visit this place herself. The princess replies with such elegance that the ascension to the throne of the new emperor is worth her appearance. So how can a friendly neighborhood like Nerpasa send a wish to his highness? Oh really? Try harder, girl. Not buying anything she's saying, Jade wants her to get to the point. The princess tells him the argument of the first emperor, which was the first emperor was planning to be betrothed to the Taranto Empire and the Nerpasa Kingdom. And that promise is about the queen's position. The nerve! Her, the queen? The crowd whispers were here and there, since it was about the future queen's position. Back with Viche's encounter with the man, still staring at her, she's not able to eavesdrop on what's going on inside. Poor Viche. Well, the man's hot. I could look at that gorge face all day. After a long battle of staring, Viche finally remembers he was one who saved her from the unsuccessful kidnapping of her and Cecil. As Jade tries to negotiate with the princess about how much good Nerpasa can export within his nation, the conversation between the two becomes more serious. The princess simply wants the present position. Benjamin is now too stressed. Such important matters like this should be discussed with the officials first. The man Viche encountered enters the room and introduces himself as the General of Nerpasa, Kentrick Bastian. A name befitting such a handsome face. He then asks permission to stay as guests for the upcoming hunting festival the Kingdom Taranto will hold, to which the Emperor has no problem with. This is getting interesting. This group of gorgeous men in one place is just the best. After hearing for the first time about the hunting festival, Viche talks with Cecil about what would happen during this event. The hunting festival is usually participated in by aristocrats or the young masters of such families. The animals hunted during the festival will be used as tributes to the goddess. Viche finds this mysterious since she thought the royal family's relationship with the temple is still bad. What is concerning is that it's inevitable that Cecil would face her love rival, the princess. She then decides to join the festival, even though her knowledge of archery isn't that good, just to gather information. After knowing that Viche is participating, Jade was surprised because the ladies don't normally participate. The ladies usually enjoy light refreshments and intimate conversations. Startled by Viche's involvement, Jade first declines to instruct her, but her convincing frown makes him reconsider. Benjamin gives a disapproving look, yet he makes time for Jade despite his busy schedule worries. Meanwhile, the uncaring Jade passionately teaches Viche, holding her hands naturally to guide her, making Viche blush. Jade performs perfectly in front of Viche, hitting the bullseye like a piece of cake. Oh god, those arms! Isn't he pulling the arrows too hotly? He then asks if his coolness softened her heart. Wow, his never-ending flirting is just on point. Jade stands at the back of Viche as he continues to guide her in her first shot, hitting the target board successfully. But Viche refuses guidance from Jade. She tells him she's feeling awkward with the intimate body contact she felt a while ago, and that she feels pressured. Jade asks why she's feeling pressured if she doesn't see him as a man. But inside her head, she's thinking of the thing she's feeling behind her back. Viche continues to learn, getting better each time. But the thought of learning archery every day with Jade, every day touching and hugging from behind like today, it seems a bit too much. She now tells him if he is perhaps trying to take advantage for free. Jade gives a cunning smile, touching her hands, and says to her that he's dying to eat her, and that it's time for Viche to give him some. Oh my god, wait, this cunning old fox can't just get enough. Kentrick bites his apple and sees the two from afar, noticing the frantic Viche. God, I totally forgot about this other handsome man. When did eating apples become this hot? In the bustling palace, intensified by the Nerpasa delegation's arrival, the unexpected presence of the neighboring princess remains unknown. Seemingly lost in the vast palace, Viche seizes the opportunity to practice archery, feeling unqualified for the upcoming hunting festival. Kentrick suddenly shows himself and teaches her posture. Kentrick reads her mind and shows her how it's done. A great general indeed. Viche claps with admiration and introduces herself after a lot of encounters, even though he seems to know her. Even though before he said there's no need to repay the favor, Viche is honored to meet him. Viche remembers she promised something in that alley back then. Viche thinks that the general must have sneaked into the Empire. She's confused about how to act around him. Kendrick tells her how he can't forget her when she's the one who grabbed his legs and screamed horribly like that. Kendrick! Seriously, to her face? That's some kind of guts you got there. Unlike his dry appearance, Kendrick fixes Viche from the basic position with as minimal touching as possible. Kendrick wonders and asks why the daughter of the Marquis needs to learn archery, not knowing that Viche is doing all of this just to watch his precious princess. Their conversation came to the topic of how Viche is staying in the Emperor's palace. Well, she can't say because she's the childhood friend of the Emperor, nor because she's a guest staying in the palace, or because she's a friend of the goddess. Viche just says she's staying because she's helping the goddess adjust to life inside the palace. Kendrick thinks that she must be a servant, and Viche burns to anger. She now thinks how unbelievable he sees a relationship between people. Kendrick innocently asks her what is her role in the palace, which makes her caught off guard. What exactly is her role? A memory flashes suddenly to Viche's mind, back to the time when Jade asked who assigned her that role. She has no idea why that sentence suddenly pops into her head. As the day slowly comes to its end, the color of fire hearts and tangerines appears. Kendrick and Viche talk while they're walking, and she finds out that the reason why such a general with high rank accompanies the princess is because they're cousins. Viche tries to fish out information about the princess, but Kendrick advises Viche to not get involved with her, which makes her think how awful the princess can be. You're not entirely wrong, Viche. She's too terrible to be with. After walking Viche to her abode, Kendrick bids his farewell. So sweet. If only Viche could notice such advances. I forgot we're on the Emperor's side here. Cecil and Viche were talking about Viche's endeavors these days, like how the Emperor personally taught her regardless of how busy he is for Viche's sake. Viche is caught off guard by what Cecil thinks of Jade towards her, although it's true that Benjamin needs to come and drag him away. Cecil is confused as to why Viche seems desperate to deny Jade's care for her. She then asks what Cecil feels towards Jade. It's like, speak now or forever hold your peace, Viche. Cecil then answered that they are just unpleasant and horrible together. Viche is now in great brain turmoil as to why she's feeling this way. Does she finally realize it now? Concerned with how Viche is reacting in front of her, Cecil suggests to her to try having a vacation after the Congress. Upon hearing the word vacation, something lit up in Viche's mind. Viche needs to admit now how her head is filling up these days with the silhouette of Jade. Although she enters the palace to match Cecil and Jade, the person who got caught up in the whirlpool of feelings for Jade is actually her. Both Jade and Viche came back, and the original content has changed using Jade's magic, but in the end, the biggest loophole in the world they're in hasn't changed. As someone who should have died a long time ago, Viche thinks that it is a flaw of this established worldview. An urgent letter came to His Highness Marquis in the middle of the night from Viche. The letter contains Viche's plan of leaving without anyone knowing, with the help of his father, His Highness Marquis, for a vacation which Viche thinks she needs, a place peaceful and quiet. Viche is spending her time in the palace's garden, looking for where she's going for her vacation. Suddenly, Jade is at her back helping her decide. Unknowingly, she keeps taking the advice of the man behind her when she realizes who she's talking to. Can Viche stop being so cute? We can't concentrate on the handsome man playing with her. Startled by his presence, Jade finds out the places she's trying to sneak off to. Viche looks too guilty as she tells him that she's going on a vacation. But to her surprise, Jade calmly suggests better places. Because of its beauty, Jade suggests traveling north, imagining a peaceful cabin atop a snow-capped peak with his mind. They are stranded by windows covered with snow and taking refuge by the hearth. As Jade recalls a scene of them by the fire, watching snowfall with rabbit footprints, Viche listens in curiosity. Viche's uneasy reaction to her endearing portrayal causes them both to inadvertently draw a future where their preferences coincide. Wait, remind me why they aren't together again? The look on Viche's face when Jade is seriously asking her for a vacation, that after everything Jade is handling at the moment, they would go on a vacation, the two of them. Just when everything seems serious with them, Jade asks for an explanation with the letter given by Viche's father. The letter Viche secretly sends to his father. Looks like the others Viche's referring to doesn't include Jade. Jade asks why she's looking for a house in the countryside, so Viche answers him that it's for her preparation as she gets older. Really, Viche? And like the never-ending romantic remarks, Jade tells her if she's in a hurry, then he should have to hurry up too. If Viche doesn't get to her senses, we'd marry Jade ourselves. The plan needs to be hurried because she wants to know if it relates to her. Jade sits in the darkness of his room thinking about Viche and how she acted when he confessed his feelings to her. She has been avoiding him, so he asked her not to and even begged her to stay with him. He knows how she looks at places to go on a vacation, that she's preparing to leave him. He even knows that Viche loves him, that she herself hasn't realized it yet, but Viche just claims that she only thinks of him as family. This wears down on his confidence. Jade calls on Benjamin on the opposite side of the room amidst a stack of unattended documents. He complains to Jade about his workload. Benjamin has been working so much that Jade's office might as well be his. Jade ignores the complaints and hands Benjamin the documents to quickly browse and stamp. Benjamin, now irritated, exclaims that Jade should just hurry and get married already, and even suggests kidnapping her or just have her sign a contract right away. Jade acknowledges this, as if he's considered this before. In the silence after Jade's response, Benjamin now thinks that Jade is indeed absurd. However, it would be more work to do if Jade rushes to marry his cousin, so he proceeds to take back his suggestions. Benjamin offers another piece of advice not to be too controlling, as women don't like that, and to slow down and observe first to see what she really wants. Indeed, Jade has given her signals of his affection, but none seem to get through to her. Even flirting with her outwardly and using pickup lines never seem to work. Of all people to propose a crazy idea, well, it happens to be Benjamin, stating that Jade should just threaten his in-denial cousin. We clearly know it's a bad thing, but Jade just smiles and agrees? Is he gonna do it? Sometime later in Viche's room, a box sits atop her bed. Curious, she hurries to open it, and out pops a beautiful necklace, a flower formed out of amber just for her. She tries it on and wonders who might have given such a beautiful present. However, when she tries to remove the piece, the necklace seems to be stuck. Then, her servant claims that the necklace might be spellbound. Viche asks the maid who put the box on her bed, and she got her answer right away. The necklace is from the king. Still flustered from her last encounter with Jade, she does not want to go to him yet, so she asks for help from the palace wizard instead, but still, no luck. The palace wizard claims that the necklace is a complicated kind, and the only gruesome solution is cutting her neck instead. Viche, after getting a hopeless reply from the wizard, goes to Cecilia, but even the saint can't do anything. Cecilia thinks this can be a leash given to her by the king. But since she can't help Viche, she suggests getting help from the priests. Viche, thinking it would be priest Michel, is now hopeful. But cousin Duffrey arrives instead, and immediately gets irritated for calling him all the way from the temple just for a necklace. Viche explains about the irremovable necklace that Jade left on her bed. After checking the necklace, Duffrey claims that it has ancient magic to it and suggests not to call anyone as it's really dangerous. He then asks Viche if she's already gone to Jade about this yet. She has, before going to Cecil and summoning a priest. Jade had complimented her and admitted that it was from him. He then casted some sort of magic in it and proclaimed that it's her life necklace, which means that if she didn't have it, she would die. Viche implored him to remove it, but he claimed that he didn't have the amount of magic to unlock the thing. If attempted by anyone else, it would cause death. If she'd go away and disappear, then Jade would die. Clearly, he did not want her to go away. Jade looked at her with an expression she rarely saw. He looked angry and cold. The priest, now moving forward, probes if she'll just go along with it, despite knowing that she's already in Jade's hands. Oblivious as usual, Viche asks how her cousin knows. He explains that the way that she is, she's the only one who doesn't know that her childhood friend is deeply in love with her. Even Cecilia backs this up by saying that everyone can clearly see that Jade loves her. Viche can't believe what she just heard. Duffrey, now done with Viche, heads over to Jade and asks him what he's going to do next. Jade is confident on how to handle her, and Duffrey can clearly see that. After all, the man knows Viche more than anyone else, but there are also things he's afraid about. It feels like she's drifting farther away from him, like someone who's going to leave this world soon. Duffrey and Jade reminisce about the time when they were still children and how Jade always put Viche first. So Jade can't help but ask Duffrey how he feels about his friend marrying Viche. Duffrey, being honest, admits that it's horrible, because Jade is a king and it's not that easy for him. The next night, Viche finds herself in a room with Jade, Cecilia, Princess Imelda, and General Kendrick. As Viche walks in, she can already sense the tension. As if answering her question in mind, Jade says out loud that Princess Imelda wants an audience with the holy maiden Cecilia. Now one question answered, Viche wonders further on why she got invited to this dinner too. On cue, the princess looks at her and asks about her role. Viche should have come up with a reason by now, as she was asked already before, but she just blurts out that she's just accompanying the Holy Maiden, as a servant. Reading the room, no one seems to be convinced except the princess. Changing the subject, the princess inquires about the involvement of the Holy Maiden with the king, but Jade answers on her behalf, saying that the princess has no business with that. Wise. No need to reveal secrets to other countries. But Viche is convinced that the princess already knows. In that matter, how? Only trusted people know about the curse. The atmosphere grows heavier as they eat, but Jade breaks the silence, directing the conversation now to the general. Somehow, Jade knows about General Kendrick teaching Viche archery. The general issues a humble reply to the king that he is not bad at it. With a smile that seems to be envy and pride, Jade invites him to the hunting festival. The general has no problem accepting the challenge. Jade then proposes a gamble with the other participants, including Viche, and a wish will be granted to the winner. General Kendrick is intrigued and hints on a possible political reward, which Viche guesses might involve Princess Imelda. You're aiming too high, General, as if Jade would let you win. Jade then decides that if he wins, he will send the Nerpasa emissary back, to which the princess interjects and instructs her general to have fun instead. On the other hand, Cecilia expresses her excitement for the event and puts her confidence in her friends who took the effort to practice archery. After that, he walks Viche to her room. He gets curious about her wish if she ever wins. Viche, the unwilling participant, is not enthusiastic. She only got caught in the fray, and she did not have guts to say no to the competition. Then, Jade breaks the news that he is no longer related to Cecilia. Also knowing that Princess Almeida knows their convenient relationship means that someone leaked the information. However, Viche stops and excuses herself out of the political subject, so Jade reminds her about her unsuccessful attempts with Cecilia and Duffrey about the necklace instead. This infuriates Viche and the fact that he is following her around. Excuse me, Viche, but you are literally walking in his palace. Viche asks him how she's in danger without the necklace and how far she can go with it, considering the hunting competition. Jade answers her with not much of a clear answer. A magical explosion might or might not happen. He doesn't know much. He's not helpful at all. But even with the idea of Viche running away, Jade states that he's just going to accept his death and die if she disappears. Jade, as matter-of-factly, says that the magic should power down at least 3 months from when it started. Viche takes this as an opportunity to bargain with Jade, saying that their friendship will be at stake if he does not deal with the necklace in 3 months. Jade smirks and agrees, thinking that it's just enough time. Suddenly, Jade leans closer and starts to reach for her face, or so we thought. He strokes her hair instead. But isn't it the same as being romantic? Why can't you see it, Viche? When he takes his leave, Viche is right outside her door, flustered. She thought they were about to kiss. That's it, girl. You should keep up with his advances. The day of the hunting festival has come. The venue is crowded with nobles. Tents are set up for noble ladies, and horses are ready in their makeshift stables for the hunt. Viche admits that she's scared, so Cecilia cheers her up with the easy flat terrain and her experience with horses. Duffrey joins in and casts doubt on Viche. He is confident that she will get lost and insults her horse riding capability like a real cousin would. He even wishes the horse more luck than its rider. Viche, as usual, gets pissed at her cousin and asks him why he's around. Viche looks at Cecilia and gets her answer. She asks for the priest to be here. Cecilia hands Viche an embroidered handkerchief. This makes Viche happy and promises her a catch. Viche drags Duffrey to the side and proposes he should watch over Cecilia. They are interrupted by Jade, who sees the handkerchief and mistakenly thought that it was for him. Viche says otherwise, so he tries to get it. Viche doesn't back down and keeps the handkerchief to herself. On the other side of the venue, the princess knows that the king loves his childhood friend and is the reason why he declined all the proposals from other countries. She is intrigued by their relationship and tells the general that while he is away, she will try to get to know her and try to get closer. The general looks to where Viche is, thinking that she may not be the goddess, but she indeed looks like one. Suddenly, the bullhorn blows and the hunting competition begins. The 3 betting participants ride on their horses, with Viche on the lead. However, Viche took a path away from familiar ones and is now lost. Alone in the forest, she admits it's not as scary as she thought. But still, she can't go back with empty hands, right? After all, she promises to bring a catch for Cecilia. Wandering aimlessly, she gets startled by someone grabbing her wrist. Thinking it's Jade, she turns around and sees General Kendrick instead. If Viche ends up with Jade, I'll kick the princess out and marry this man myself. Viche looks back to where she was walking to and sees a cliff. She almost walked herself to death. She collapses as the general berates not to walk around looking at the sky, but the surroundings instead. General Kendrick gets ready to walk away, and Viche follows him, noticing how he walks fast. Viche admires his sense of direction and his pace, but also complains a little bit. Suddenly, Kendrick stops. A few meters away is a wild boar. Viche gets impatient and implores the general to attack the boar, but he stops her. He tells her to be patient and directs her to shoot the boar with her bow instead, just like how they practiced. Back to the tents, one of the knights causes a ruckus and claims that a dragon is within the forest. Another problem is there is a big white snake, too. Duffrey, now beside Cecilia, casts his suspicions on the princess as the white snake serves as a symbol of Napasa. He has been keeping a careful eye on the princess, but she didn't leave to go anywhere. Is this just a coincidence? In the forest, a servant finds a handkerchief given to Viche and hands it over to Jade. The news of the dragon spread fast, and they are aware of the danger, so the competition has to stop. Before going back, Jade wants to go find Viche. Suddenly, the fireworks explode as a sign that the soldiers have found her. Jade rushes to her, and he immediately explodes with worry because she seems unaware of the danger. He looks around and sees the wild boar she apparently shot. Jade, in disbelief, asks her if she shot the boar, to which she replies with a reluctant yes. Viche is now outside the forest, reunited with Cecilia and Duffrey. She caught a big boar, and that means the next person will have to bring a much bigger hunt to be able to win the bet. As if on cue, a bear is dragged out of the forest in a cart. One of the participants, Viscount Melbron, easily besets Viche with his bear. And as it turns out, the Viscount wins the overall competition. Meanwhile, Benjamin led his men to find anything, but he never found anything resembling a snake or a dragon. In fact, he could find no trace of demonic beasts. This is just a wild guess, but is it possible that it's the work of the princess? Later that evening, Viche still attends the party despite being physically exhausted from hunting. General Kendrick appears next to her, and she asks why he is around after a long day of hunting. It seems like wherever the princess is, the general follows. He asks her the same, and she claims her presence is just for formalities. As being a palace resident, it would be odd for her not to attend. Then, she expresses her gratitude for helping her from nearly walking off the cliff and for catching her boar. He then clarifies that she was the one to spot the boar first and compliments her courage for shooting first. She then offers to do the same if he ever needs a helping hand. Kendrick just tells her to save the favor for later because he might need it soon. Cecilia interrupts their conversation by calling on Viche as she comes barreling down the stairs with Jade right behind her. Viche observes the two, since they're rarely together. Them coming out together means an experiment just took place. This concerns Viche and asks Jade if he's okay, which he answers with positivity despite looking weak and pale. Princess Almeida out of nowhere comments about the temple and the Empire's relationship. Jade counters her by stating the fact that Cecilia is the first saint that they have, and it is not that unusual to have her around the palace. The princess then asks Jade if he's keeping Cecilia in the palace for his personal feelings. Jade is confused, Cecilia is shocked, and Viche is satisfied. Viche is admiring the princess now for being so in character, as this is how it happens in the novel. She didn't get it right, though. Jade and Cecilia actually hate each other. It's all unfolding like how it was in the novel. The princess thinks Cecilia is the king's lover, but is way off. Jade is getting angry, and Cecilia is appalled by this sudden revelation. Viche is now certain information was given to the princess, but they gave her the wrong information. Cecilia is only at the palace because Archduke Kathmel is experimenting on her holy power to lift Jade's curse. The princess is trying to subtly ask if they are lovers, but we know very well that the person Jade has feelings for is Viche. Jade looks at Viche with a knowing smile. Viche blushes, and out of embarrassment, she walks away with Cecilia. Viche assumes that the princess only sees her as Cecilia's servant, and that's why she's getting the wrong impression and is now conflicted about what to feel. Shortly after, Kendrick warns Princess Almeida not to use dark magic, but she cuts him off and instructs him to keep an eye on the saint. However, the general is not focusing his gaze on the saint, but on Viche. Viche is reunited with her father. In front of them is a pile of ash. He reveals that those were her marriage proposals. He then asks her why she turned down Jade's proposal to her, to which she thinks she did not really refuse him, but just postponed answering. Just then, her father suggests that if she does not intend to marry the king, then it might be time for her to go home. If she goes home after taking off the necklace in 3 months, what will happen to Cecilia and Jade? Later on, as she ponders in the garden, she hears a commotion and sees Jade and Cecilia in one of the garden pavilions. Suddenly, she is startled by Kendrick, who approaches her. She ducks instinctively, and seeing how she reacts, he accuses her of spying. Now that they have caused a commotion too, Viche suggests they both crouch low. Kendrick asks Viche what her relationship with the king really is. Viche answers that they are just childhood friends. He then eyes her suspiciously, to which Viche responds to more explanation and exposure of their childhood history. It seems the answer to the general's question took so long that the next question came as a surprise to Viche. But he's not entirely wrong. How can a friend look at her like that? The general suddenly looks behind her, which makes her turn her head as well. Surprised with Jade's sudden appearance, Viche greets him good morning like nothing's amiss. As a reply, he in turn asks her a question. What is she doing in a weird position with the general with her in his garden? Feeling like she was caught doing something wrong with the general, she comes up with a made-up story of a baby snail and the general happened to be walking by, hence the position. The general backed her up with the story. Viche then grabs Kendrick's hand and walks away with him, leaving Jade behind. I feel so bad for him right now. If only Viche realizes how much he's hurting every time she walks away. Jade then calls on to his trusted secretary and tasks them to look into General Kendrick. He does not say it out loud, but he has had his suspicions ever since the day of the hunt. Alone once again after scurrying away from Jade, Viche apologizes to Kendrick for dragging him away. She invites him for breakfast, which he declines. Viche can't help but to think that even if she owes her life to the general, she still does not want to reveal too much about her relationship to the king, due to the general's connection with the princess. Later on, Viche ventures into the city alone, but even if it has been hours after her last encounter with Kendrick, here he is in front of her again. A coincidence, perhaps? They ask each other about their goals in the city, and they seem to be going the same direction. While busily talking, a little boy lurks around and spots Viche with her full purse. Immersed in the conversation with the general while proclaiming her doubt of ever becoming a target, the thief zooms in front of her and snatches her purse. Feeling courageous, she implores the general's generosity and asks to borrow money on top of her already existing debt. The general agrees, and they go to their initial goal. Before arriving at the store, they encounter a ruckus by the alley. The little boy from earlier is getting beat up by men who are confronting him about the money he just stole with an imperial crest. The thief claims that he brought the money and that he has no other choice or else he wouldn't be able to trade it for medicine. Before the men can continue to hit him, Viche interrupts. Viche claims that the little boy did not steal the money and that she willingly gave it to him, and as proof, she asks one of the men to look into the purse and read the note inside. The note contains a request for purchase, for specific items. As a man reads out the contents of the note, Viche hangs her head down. The boy thief looks confused, and the men stupefied. After learning that Viche comes from a noble family, the mob of men retreats and throws a pack at the young boy. They threaten him, telling the boy that they will forgive him too, but next time, he needs to bring them money. Viche approaches the young boy and asks if he's alright, assuring him she will not blame him for pickpocketing her. Hearing this, Kendrick starts to chuckle, which Viche notices. This makes her glare at him, telling him to stop laughing. Meanwhile, the young boy tries to run away again since he's desperate to deliver the medicine. But Kendrick swiftly carries him, asking Viche if she needs help. She agrees, but he adds that it's better if he helps first before laughing at her. Well, these two have chemistry. As they walk to the young boy's home, Kendrick realizes Viche is a strange woman. When they first met, he thought she was a damsel in distress who needed saving. She's an archer who hesitates to kill an animal, and now she's willing to help a thief. Kendrick also notices something about how she stares at others. As they arrive at the young boy's home, Viche and Kendrick notice how ramshackle the house is. Thus, Viche asks the boy where their parents are. The boy explains that they are now orphans, working at the mine to earn a little money. After the boy Veltine introduces Viche to his sick brother, he then prepares medicine for him. Left with the sick boy, Vere, Viche asks about his illness, and the ill boy explains that he can't adjust to magic. Viche then understands this and realizes that the sick boy can't create magic, but if he is trained, then there's a possibility that he can control magic. However, education costs a lot of money, so having a witch as a mentor is better. After that, Viche curiously asks the boys what the medicinal herb is, to which the boys innocently reply that it's Morimala. Kendrick then explains to Viche that the other name is Aladara, and it's from Nerpasa. He curiously asks the boys how they can make medicine out of it, to which the boys innocently reply that they also don't know. As they leave the boys' home, Viche asks Kendrick about the herb. Kendrick quickly warns her that it isn't safe to know everything, but he also knows that she would not stop until she got an answer, Thus, he told her that Morimala is poisonous. Knowing this, Viche realizes that something might be wrong with Very's medicine, but is confused again. It doesn't make sense that Veltine is slowly killing his brother, who already suffers from hypersensitivity to mana. Seeing Viche's confused face, Kendrick explains that poisonous plants can be used as medicine if appropriately handled. He informs Viche that Veltine knows that the tea brewed with Morimala is a traditional remedy that can relieve the symptoms of Very's illness. However, the poison damages the heart, as mana is produced from the heart, creating too much pain. Thus, to relieve the pain, Very drinks Morimala. Hearing this, Viche tries to go back and stop the boys, but Kendrick stops her, saying that Veltine already knows the consequence of this, but still has no choice because he thinks it's better to slowly die in peace from poison than live longer in pain. Viche hopelessly stops and starts to realize that Jade has similar symptoms to Vere. Later that night, while Viche and Jade are having dinner together, Jade asks Viche about her day and how her trip to the bookstore went. But Jade doesn't know that Viche wasn't able to go. Viche, on the other hand, also doesn't want Jade to know that she went to the slums or the pickpocket incident, so Viche lies about not getting anything from the bookstore. Afterward, Jade informs Viche that Kendrick will join them since he also skipped dinner, making Viche more nervous. Jade might already know she's lying, but she still tries to act normal even when Kendrick arrives at the table, making the atmosphere more awkward. A jealous Jade is scary. Next, as they continue, Jade asks Viche what favor she wants since she won the hunt competition. Hearing this, Viche gathers the courage to ask him if they could have a non-profit organization, one that helps poor people suffering from hypersensitivity to mana. While Viche is waiting for Jade's answer, she starts to remember her encounter with Vere. She feels that Jade's curse is also related to hypersensitivity to mana, and thinks that if she can help more people like Vere and study their illness, they can find a way to lift Jade's curse. Hearing Viche's favor, Jade clarifies to her that the Empire starves to death daily because they can't afford a few grains of wheat, and she wants to create a non-profit organization for people with hypersensitivity to mana instead? Viche strongly agrees, explains to him that all she needs is a permit from him. Hence, Jade questions her if she's willing to waste her family's money for this. But Viche has already made up her mind, so she quickly agrees without thinking twice. After a slight pause, Jade smiles at Viche and congratulates her for finally finding what it is that she wants to do. Because of this, Viche realizes that all she ever wanted to do was find a cure for Jade's curse without the help of others. The next day, Viche visits Vere and Veltine and informs them about her plan to build a treatment center for people like Vere, making Veltine question her motive since there's nothing free in life. Viche tells the boys that in return, Vere should become a magician and help those like him, but she adds that she will still compensate Vere for his work, of course. Moreover, food and a place to stay will also be provided for them. Vere quickly agrees, but Veltine is still hesitant. However, he later concurs after Vere persuades him. The following day, Jade shows Viche the building she will use for her treatment center and office, shocking her at how big it is. Her initial plan is to rent only a tiny, homey building with the help of her father, but Jade has other plans. Jade starts instructing the workers to get rid of the bell and the goddess statue since they're unnecessary, making Viche stressed, realizing that it's originally a temple. Well, Jade's head over heels in love with you, girl! While they're walking inside the building, Viche realizes that Jade doesn't mind what the goddess's reaction will be after knowing that Jade has torn down and renovated the temple into a treatment center. She can't fathom where Jade's confidence comes from. After that, Jade asks Viche who the children she is bringing to the center are. Viche excitedly shares that she'll get 2 boys, Vere and Veltine. This earns her a stare from Jade, reminding her that he is still the first one that Viche saved, making her blush a little. Upon entering the building, Viche is amazed at how lovely the building is, but stops after realizing that Jade is still with her. It makes her question if he isn't busy today, telling him that he doesn't need to come a long way. Still, Jade tells Viche that he wants to see how she falls in love with the place personally, and also adds that he wants to spend more time with her since, in the past days, Viche has been spending more time with Kendrick. Oh, Jade, you are such a smooth talker! Next, Viche embarrassingly asks Jade if he has started to feel attracted to anyone lately, which makes Jade chuckle since she is seriously unpredictable. He thinks she might be jealous of Cecilia, but Viche quickly denies this. Afterward, they start to reminisce about their childhood and how they awkwardly acted as children after traveling back in time. Jade then becomes serious and asks Viche if she ever wonders which part of the past he turned back time to. Meanwhile, Cecilia bumps into Imelda, who instantly greets her and comments that they haven't seen each other since the hunting competition. Imelda invites Cecilia for tea. Duffrey quickly remembers Viche warning him to be careful with Imelda. Thus, he quickly whispers to Cecil that accepting Imelda's invitation might not be a good idea. Cecil assures Duffrey that she is fine and then agrees to Imelda's invitations. Meanwhile, Viche is surprised by Jade's question. Thus, she nervously tells him she does not know. She then realizes that she only assumed that he returned before he met Cecilia. Jade questions why she is not curious. Viche never bothered to ask him how, why, and how many times he turned back time. Hearing this, Viche is shocked that Jade might have repeatedly turned back time for her. Thus, she panics and starts to run away from Jade, not turning back even when he calls her. In her room, Viche realizes she has many things to ask him, but she stops herself out of fear. After all, she's not ready to hear the truth from Jade. Viche thinks it might be her fault that the original story went off track. She then remembers how she ran away from Jade like a coward, but as always, she knows that he would still be waiting for her, even if his health is deteriorating. Girl, that's how much Jade loves you! Next, Duffrey visits Viche. As they have tea, he informs her that the temple will also help her foundation, catching her by surprise. Duffrey informs Viche that the temple priest will take turns volunteering at the foundation. Thus, she needs to check the details of the documents. But Viche is shocked to see the pile of documents she needs to read. After that, Viche asks how Cecilia is, and Duffrey informs her that Cecilia has a lousy stomachache after having tea with Imelda. Cecilia tells him they can't blame Imelda since there is no evidence. Viche is stressed after learning this, especially since she has already warned Duffrey about it, but she calms down and plans to visit Cecilia later. The following day, Viche walks towards the center to check the supplies, mentally noting that she should visit Cecilia. As she walks, she suddenly bumps into Kendrick, who accuses her of stalking him. He even thinks Viche might like him, which she annoyingly denies. Upon arriving at the stable, the man informs Kendrick that his horse is still not ready since it's short notice. Viche offers him a ride and assures him she has no motive, hence, Kendrick accepts this. While in the carriage, Viche shares with Kendrick that Veri and Veltine will be moving into the treatment center in a few days, and that after completing Veri's treatment, Veltine and Veri promise to help her too. Kendrick comments that putting up a treatment center might be challenging work for a noble like her, but Viche excitedly replies that she is fine and wants help, which Kendrick finds strange. Upon arrival at the treatment center, Viche bids goodbye to Kendrick, but then Kendrick gets out of the carriage, telling her he is curious about the place and wants to look around. Hearing this, Viche starts to share that Jade helps by donating to the temple, to which Kendrick comments that Jade cares very much about her. However, Viche explains that Jade is donating it for a good purpose, feeling nervous since Kendrick might also know her relationship with Jade. Afterward, Viche looks at the crates and realizes she can't carry them alone. Thus, she looks at Kendrick and asks him if he can help her take the crates, expressing that it's only groceries. Kendrick chuckles at how unpredictable Viche is, but agrees to help her. It looks like Kendrick is starting to like Viche. Meanwhile, Jade is at the dinner table waiting for Viche to join him. The butler informs him that she can't join him since she's at the treatment center with Kendrick. This sours Jade's mood, coldly telling the butler that he will not be eating. Back in the treatment center, Viche and Kendrick finish carrying the crates. Thus, she tells Kendrick she'll visit the boys, and he offers to join her. At Veri's and Veltine's home, a magician starts to heal Veri, with Veltine watching intently. Ever so warmly, she assures Veltine that Vera is all right. On their way home, Viche asks Kendrick if he wants to go to the weapons store since it's around the corner. As he listens to her rambling on, he realizes that maybe she can quickly catch on, but he quickly takes it back after knowing that Viche thinks Kendrick might be an avid collector. As they walk towards the store, Viche asks if Kendrick treats a sword as his third arm. Kendrick disagrees since he doesn't put too much meaning into objects. He adds that he only needs a sword because only the prepared can survive in a kingdom with too much royal blood. Kendrick explains that the king has many wives, hence also having many kingdoms. Viche then innocently asks Kendrick how many wives he has, but he tells her he has none. Does he look like the type to have many wives? This makes Viche panic, explaining that she merely asked since polygamy is common in their kingdom. But Kendrick tells her that he only plans to marry one wife since he doesn't want one woman after another to come after his neck in the end. He must be wary of enemies after all. I like that logic, Kendrick. Later that night, Cecilia cutely asks Viche why she only visits now and starts to rant about how she has noticed that Imelda has been bullying her ever since the hunting competition. Hearing this, Viche shares with Cecilia that it might be because she is with Jade most of the time. Because of this, Cecilia also realizes what Viche meant and promises she will not let Imelda win. Afterwards, while walking outside, Viche suddenly bumps into Imelda, who invites her for tea. Hearing this, Viche is hesitant for fear of Imelda poisoning her. Still, she doesn't want to show that she's disrespecting Imelda. Luckily, Kendrick suddenly appears behind Imelda, telling her that she needs to rest since she might catch a cold. Imelda agrees, thus leaving Viche and not waiting for her answer about having tea. Cecilia suddenly appears beside Viche after being left alone and starts to comment that Kendrick is a charming man who's excellent husband material. Cecilia adds that even if she doesn't want Viche to leave the Empire, she will accept it willingly, implying that Kendrick might snatch her away and they become partners. A shock for Viche to hear. Viche is about to deny any relationship or feelings about her love life, but Jade also appears and asks whose personal life they're talking about. Seeing Jade's jealousy, Cecilia quickly excuses herself, leaving Viche alone with Jade. Alone, Jade tries to ask Viche to share about their conversation, but she quickly rejects this. When she starts to run away, Jade acts like his heart hurts and needs the necklace. But when she comes near, he pulls her in for a hug. Meanwhile, in the garden, Kendrick asks Imelda why she is eager to be the Empress of Taranto. She replies that she wants to rule the whole continent. Selfish witch? Imelda then informs Kendrick about Cecenti's arrival, reminding him that Cecenti is a greedy man, so he needs to be on guard. The following morning, while Cecilia is treating Jade, they start to argue again, and Jade's uncle quickly reprimands them. The treatment center is finally open, and it is bustling with staff from the palace and the temple, who are mainly pressured to join, especially Sophia, Viche's maid at the Amalian Manor. As Viche overlooks everything, Sophia approaches her and stresses, asking Viche why she didn't ask her father for help with manpower, but Viche strongly disagrees with that notion. Sophia, tired, then asks why she asked her to help, and Viche explains that she initially thought Sophia wanted to help. It's what she wrote in her letter, after all. Next, the magician and Vere also visit Viche. When they are alone in the office, the magician explains to Viche that Vere is a rare talent since he can deliver a physical shock to other magicians, even with his unrefined mana. In fact, he may be able to suppress or destroy unnecessary surplus mana. Hearing this, Viche realizes that Vere might also be able to cure people with a curse, which raises her hopes of finding a cure for Jade's curse. Overjoyed, Viche happily hugs Vere. On her way home, Viche decides to walk around the market. While browsing, she finds a store selling mangoes, so she buys some to enjoy while walking around. As she continues to walk around, she is surprised to bump into Kendrick for the nth time. Kendrick accusingly asks her if this is another coincidental encounter, which Viche quickly clarifies that it's the truth. She'd never stalk him. Kendrick then looks at the food that Viche is holding and asks what it is. She explains to him that these are sweet mangoes and unmindfully shares food with him. However, Kendrick asks if she wants him to eat her leftovers, which annoys her, but she still replies that she will get him a new one. After buying, Kendrick starts to enjoy the food and comments about how sweet it is. While they're eating, Kendrick sees people gathering near a box. Seeing him confused, Viche explains that it is for the puppet show, and she asks if he wants to see the show, to which he nods in agreement. Meanwhile, while the soldiers are moving barrels and crates from the Nespasa kingdom, they notice some vials that look like they contain blood. It seems like a problem is about to happen again. As they watch the show, Viche tells Kendrick that this story is one of their founding myths, and comments on how creative their ancestors were in developing a story. However, the children quickly contradict her since they think it's not made up, making Kendrick chuckle. Afterwards, Kendrick shares with Viche that they also have the same myth. It's about a white snake that a woman laid, hence, white snakes have become a symbol of good luck to them. Legend says that the white snake also brings miracles to the desert, and whenever it appears, flowers bloom. As they walk back to the palace, Viche asks Kendrick when he will return home, but playful as ever, Kendrick merely replies if she wants him to leave already. Viche then starts to share that she wants to travel to other places. Kendrick invites her to visit Nepos in the future, which excites Viche. She innocently tells Kendrick that he's a great friend, which confuses Kendrick since nobody ever calls him a friend. All of a sudden, Jade appears behind Viche. Kendrick politely greets Jade, explaining that he is merely spending time with his friend, making Viche panic. Well, this is an awkward situation. Kendrick then excuses himself shortly after. He does so nonchalantly, as if not noticing the tense atmosphere. Jade also walks away from Viche, but she quickly follows Jade. He comments how strange it is that she and Kendrick constantly bump into each other, but he, whose life literally depends on her, rarely gets to see her. Hearing this, Viche counters that Jade shouldn't mind since they're only friends. Thus, Jade faces Viche and tells her that they are not family or friends, reminding her that she can't just avoid him any longer. Jade has had enough. He gives Viche an ultimatum. They must either become lovers or nothing at all. Not friends, not family, just strangers. His action surprises her. He has never been this honest or nervous before. He continues, telling her he can no longer bear being avoided by her, and warns that if she doesn't answer him now, he might go mad. Confused, Viche asks if Jade is confessing his feelings. Jade kneels, begging for his love to be reciprocated. Having known him for a long time, Viche understands how delicate his heart is, and realizes he's pleading for her to end his agony. Meanwhile, Kendrick witnesses the scene and finds it pathetic that the Emperor is begging for love. He's now certain Viche and Jade have a secret relationship, proving Imelda wrong. As Viche's image appears in his mind, Kendrick silently expresses gratitude to his dear friend. Shortly after, he notices a robed figure and wonders why Chechente is here. Suddenly, he hears a cry from where Viche was. Jade has passed out! The palace is in an uproar as they try to treat the Emperor. Viche waits in a remote room for news. Cecilia arrives but doesn't bring good news. The Grand Duke tells her to keep wearing the necklace until Jade wakes up. Despite their efforts, his powers are not reacting at all. The faint glow of Viche's necklace indicates Jade is recovering slowly. For now, both the Duke and Cecilia search for ways to help the Emperor while Viche stays beside him. Viche reflects on how much she wanted to save Jade, learning everything she could just to fulfill her purpose. She knew he liked her deeply but avoided him to save him. Suddenly, Jade wakes up. Viche expresses her worry and begs him to get well soon. Confused, Jade asks why she's so worried when she keeps avoiding him. He explains that every time he does something for her, she either causes trouble or avoids him entirely. Once again, he begs her to love him and never leave. Jade claims that he doesn't care if he does, as long as Viche will love him more. He notes that she always has a soft spot for vulnerable things. Knowing this, he's willing to be the most pitiful person in her eyes just so that she'll look in his direction. He continues, saying that all he ever wanted was to see her again after her death. But the more he spent time with her, the more he longed for more. He used to not care about his life. He even traded it to go back in time. However, things are different now. He has a reason to live, and that reason is Viche. That's why he can no longer bear being ignored by her, because every time she does so, it feels like his heart is tearing apart. To him, living like that is a fate worse than death. So he asks her once again if she really doesn't love him. The old Viche would have said no. She lived her life thinking she was just a passerby, a nobody in the world of the novel. Well, not anymore. She finally admits her feelings to him, claiming that she has loved him for a very long time now. But Jade is selfish. He wants to hear it one more time. So once again, Viche confesses her feelings, saying that she loves him. Their sweet moment is short-lived when Jade makes a baffling remark, saying that he could be dreaming because what he's hearing is so unreal to him. But regardless, he doesn't care whether it's real or not. All he wants to do now is kiss her. The two continue their intimate moment. Meanwhile, Kendrick is about to enter Imelda's quarters, but is stopped by the guards. Apparently, men are not allowed in Imelda's room, and she has ordered not to let anyone in. Confused, Kendrick says that he just saw a man enter the room. One of the guards confirms that there was indeed an old man who entered. Kendrick forces his way in and grabs the dark-robed figure. He furiously asks what he did to the Emperor in the garden. However, the robed figure feigns ignorance. Strangely enough, he wasn't an old man like the guards mentioned. He then explains to Kendrick that the Emperor's collapse was not his doing, but rather God's doing. They inflicted a curse upon him. Elsewhere, Cecilia is carrying artifacts to help Jade recover. However, as she is on her way to the palace, a large serpent suddenly appears. She desperately cries for help as the serpent drags her into the water. Cecilia is being dragged deeper and deeper, rendering her helpless. Meanwhile, Imelda shares the story of the first time she met Chechente. She was only 12 years old when she had her future read by Chechente himself. This was taboo in the kingdom of Neprasa, but she did it anyways. Chechente stated that she would die before she turned 20, and that the darkness would consume her whole. However, when she first saw the Saintess Cecilia's dark eyes and hair, She thought that Cecilia was the one who would consume her. Now, Imelda seeks Checenti's insight on whether her fate will change if she gets rid of Cecilia. However, he responds by telling her that the saintess must be kept alive because the Emperor needs her powers. Checenti explains that Jade is currently cursed by the gods, and only the saintess Cecilia's powers, God's grace, can heal him. As Imelda asks for further clarification, their conversation is interrupted when Kendrick suddenly enters the room. Kendrick quickly grabs Checenti, asking him what he did to Jade earlier, but Checenti claims it wasn't his doing. Rather, it was the gods who cursed him. While Kendrick is momentarily stunned to process the information, Checenti quickly casts a sleeping spell on him. However, Checenti pauses, sensing that something is off. Curious, Imelda asks what's wrong. He responds by informing her that the spell they cast has unfortunately worn off. Meanwhile, Cecilia is desperately trying to catch her breath. She has been saved from the serpent. As she regains consciousness, she intensely tells the Grand Duke that there was a snake that pulled her deep into the lake. However, he doesn't seem to believe her. But to her, everything that happened was so real. Now she's erratically explaining to him what she witnessed earlier. It is revealed that the serpent that almost killed Cecilia was Checenti's doing. Right now, they're just glad the Grand Duke wasn't able to detect the dark magic. Checenti advises her that she shouldn't go near the servants of God. He continues, saying that gods don't like people intervening, and that's exactly what happened to the Emperor. However, Imelda is not the least bit worried. She proposes that if he helps her, she will grant him anything he wants. Upon hearing this, Checenti puts a smile on his face as he kneels to her. Elsewhere, Viche is watching over Jade as he sleeps soundly. Though she is a bit frustrated because he eventually passed out as soon as they had their first kiss, she can't believe that they finally became a couple. Viche kisses him again, hoping that he'll wake up soon. Kendrick's mother was from the desert tribe. Despite being married to royal blood, she still yearned for the desert. She always had these golden eyes, constantly longing for a home she never reached. And now Viche's eyes remind him of his mother. Kendrick wakes up in his bedroom, still aware that it has something to do with Checenti. At the same time, Viche is still watching over Jade, who still hasn't woken up. She wasn't that worried last night, but seeing how Jade still hasn't woken up since then, she's slowly becoming anxious. Though they love each other, protecting their love is so difficult. She forced herself to turn back time for him. On the other hand, Jade doesn't mind dying if it means she'll love him forever. All of her choices are now starting to catch up to her. She wonders what would have happened if she had just accepted Jade's feelings from the very beginning. Kendrick notices Viche violently shaking her head as she continues to loathe herself. He decides to approach her and stop her from doing so. He asks if she needs help hurting herself. However, she thinks he's dead serious, which confuses him. Viche tells him that if it weren't for her, none of the bad things happening to Jade would have ever happened. She feels guilty for having ruined a lot. Kendrick wonders if this is the reason why she appeared in his dream last night. He then proposes that he will help her. Seeing how Viche is confused by his intention, he explains that he doesn't want to see her like this. He asks her to come with him to Nerpasa and leave everything behind. Kendrick wipes away the tears from Viche's eyes, telling her that he's basically hugging her right now. Checenti witnesses this scene unfold before him and is greatly amused. He had thought that Kendrick had no interest in these kinds of things at all. Confused by his actions, Viche asks what Kendrick means. Kendrick tells Viche that he's interested in her. Without thinking, she blurts out her thoughts, saying he's crazy. She then asks why he likes her of all people. Kendrick responds by saying she's the only girl he has ever truly cared for. This only makes Viche more confused. She realizes that everyone around Kendrick, including Jade, must have sensed his feelings. As her thoughts settle, she asks for his forgiveness. Before she can finish, Kendrick tells her that he understands. She wonders what made him realize his feelings when she only recently discovered hers. He suggests she should choose him to avoid agonizing over it. Meanwhile, Checenti and Imelda discuss Kendrick. Imelda feels uneasy about this situation, despite being amused that this side of him exists. Imelda notes that she doesn't like Viche, but sees potential uses for her. She clarifies that she needs Kendrick's feelings, not Viche herself. Moving on, Imelda asks if the spell she requested is ready. Checenti hands her a vial containing the spell. Viche is now troubled, thinking that a side character like her shouldn't be getting all this attention. Now that she doesn't need to avoid Jade, it's Kendrick who has taken over that role. As she enters the palace, she hears Benjamin and the Grand Duke arguing about Jade still being unconscious. Viche informs them that Jade briefly woke up in the middle of the night. Her face becomes flushed, and she can't reveal what happened when Jade woke up. Unfortunately, her reaction is obvious, leading the two wondering what she did to Jade. Annoyed, she blurts out that they just kissed and she didn't do anything else. After ignoring their reactions, she clarifies that Jade indeed woke up for a bit. The Grand Duke tells her to remove the necklace once Jade wakes up. Confused, she mentions she's been wearing it for months, met with silence. She realizes she's been deceived. Afterward, she asks about Cecilia's whereabouts. Benjamin tells her that Cecilia is bedridden. Viche rushes to see Cecilia. Upon arrival, the saintess explains what happened to her. She apparently saw something in the water. A serpent was pulling her down into the lake. Though she knows that the lake is shallow, for some reason, it felt incredibly deep. After recalling all the events associated with snakes, Viche comes up with an inconclusive suspicion. She thinks that all of this might be Imelda's doing. She knows that in the original story, Imelda committed evil deeds, but Viche doesn't think Imelda has enough power to attack Cecilia without anyone noticing. Cecilia proceeds to tell her about the recent nightmares she's been having, but before she can even finish, Viche tells her that there's something she needs to confirm. Viche finds the cursed item inside the pillow sheet. Duffrey and the guards enter the room after hearing Cecilia scream. He asks how this could have happened. Viche expresses her thoughts, claiming that some of the servants and knights must have been bribed, because there's no way anyone could enter Cecilia's room easily. With that, they should all be replaced immediately. Duffrey then explains that Cecilia could possibly leave the palace if what Viche is saying is true. Viche wonders if it's no longer a problem for her to be involved in this situation. She became so lax, but now that she decided to be a part of this world, she should do something about it. She then leaves the room, wishing that Jade would wake up soon. As she leaves the room, she's greeted by none other than Imelda. Viche asks her what she's doing in front of Jade's room. Imelda retorts, asking why she's leaving the room. Viche realizes that Imelda is not interested in Jade, rather, it's her that Imelda wishes to see. Viche confronts Imelda, asking if she's the one Imelda is seeking. Earlier, a servant reported to Imelda about Viche kissing Jade in his sickbed. Imelda is obviously infuriated, knowing she's been gravely mistaken. Now, she's blaming Kendrick for keeping it from her, just so that he could protect Viche. Presently, Imelda wishes to talk with Viche in private. However, Viche is skeptical about all of this. Casting aside her worries, she thinks this will be a good opportunity to figure out what Imelda is really up to. Now, Imelda's plans have changed. Instead of using the spell on Cecilia, she's going to use it on Viche instead. The two then start talking over tea. Imelda breaks the ice, sharing about her three sisters. This contradicts what Viche knows about the Princess of Nerpasa. Imelda explains that she was never close to them and that they died because they were not cautious enough, unlike her. Viche asks her why her younger sister died, to which Imelda explains that she was apparently too greedy. Imelda thinks she would have lived if she only had chosen a peaceful life. However, Viche catches on quickly. She knows Imelda is threatening her. Viche questions why Imelda desires Jade so much, but Imelda clarifies that it's not him she wants, it's the crown. She aims to become the Empress of Taranto. Imelda explains that if she returns to Nerpasa empty-handed, she'll be deemed a disappointment. Consequently, she would be sold off to a random kingdom. That is the harsh reality of being a princess of Nerpasa. Just as Imelda continues to share her endeavors, she is interrupted by Viche. Viche doesn't care at all and tells Imelda to work hard and leave the Empire of Taranto alone. Imelda then reminds her of what she said earlier, to never be greedy unless she has something to back it up. Viche's consciousness starts to fade while Imelda commends her for not drinking the tea. However, there are many ways to intoxicate someone, including the incense around her. As Viche loses consciousness, Imelda pours something into her mouth. Chechenti appears out of nowhere and asks Imelda if she gave her every last drop. Chechenti explains that only a small dose would be effective, but there's a chance Viche might escape its effects. However, Imelda reassures Chechenti, telling him that she emptied the vial. Imelda has no intention of keeping Viche alive anymore. After instructing Chechenti to dispose of her, he considers toying with her for a bit. Shortly thereafter, Viche is found in front of the palace. Cecilia wonders why Viche's body is so cold. A maid explains that she had passed out for quite some time and that no one witnessed what had happened. Benjamin and the physician enter the room, asking Cecilia for an explanation. The doctor examines Viche and explains that all of her vital signs are abnormally low. Cecilia knows that Viche has been working hard, looking after Jade and fulfilling her duties, but she notes that Viche isn't the type to fall ill due to overwork. She attempts to use her holy powers on her, but they don't seem to have any effect at all. Later that night, Marquis Amelia suggests taking Viche back to their estate. However, Benjamin disagrees, arguing that the palace is a more secure place for her. This infuriates the Marquise, who points out that she became bedridden in the palace in the first place. Out of nowhere, an orb appears just above Viche's body. Cecilia quickly reaches out to grab Viche, but immediately retreats. Her hands become cold after briefly touching Viche's body. Suddenly, Jade appears and asks what's going on. After addressing all of their concerns, Jade demands an answer regarding what happened to Viche. Once caught up to speed, Jade inspects Viche himself. He wonders why her necklace isn't responding to his magic. Upon closer inspection, he notices a cut as well as strange glyphs all over her body. Suddenly, the mysterious pitch-dark orb emitted an eerie laughter. Shortly thereafter, Duffrey and the other priests arrive, and they are left stunned by the scene. Jade suspects it's dark magic and asks the priests if they have seen anything like this before. Upon closer inspection, Father Michel identifies that the glyphs on Viche's body resemble the ancient language of the desert tribes. Jade promptly asks Benjamin to summon Kendrick. Kendrick confirms that their guess is correct. Jade then mentions that curses and sorcery are common in Urpasa, and explains that he doesn't mind Kendrick conducting his business within the Empire. However, Jade confronts him about why he is searching for Urpasan weapons. Kendrick realizes that Jade has been playing fool all along. After listening to Jade's suspicions, Kendrick kneels down and explains that they did not intend to engage in illegal activities. Rather, they were simply looking for smugglers. Jade then demands that Kendrick tell him everything he knows about sorcery and curses. Kendrick explains that sorcerers have the ability to open the realm of the dead. Jade asks if Viche is dead, to which Kendrick responds that it's more complicated than that. Kendrick cannot confirm whether Viche can return from the realm of the dead, but mentions a legend about a certain queen who came back from it. Alarmed, Benjamin asks if Jade intends to enter the realm. After hearing all of their concerns, Jade reassures them, saying he will surely find her. Ignoring Benjamin's cries, Jade focuses solely on rescuing Viche, a helpless soul waiting for him in the realm of the dead. Jade vanishes as he enters the realm of the dead. Kendrick is furious, fully aware that this is Imelda's doing. He rushes to confront her, lashing out. However, she denies all of his accusations, noting that without evidence, she is innocent. She then proceeds to mock him and his feelings towards Viche. Having had enough of her nonsense, Kendrick informs her that her days are numbered, saying it's not him who will enter, but the Emperor of Taranto. He clarifies that if Jade isn't capable of doing it, then he himself will. Kendrick explains that if Imelda doesn't bring Viche back, Jade will die as well. Puzzled, Imelda asks why the Emperor would die. Kendrick answers, saying that Jade followed Viche into the realm of the dead. Kendrick then calls out to Cecenti, knowing that he's around. Meanwhile, alone in the realm of the dead, Viche hears a distant voice. However, it is quickly replaced by eerie screams. Viche is left alone with her thoughts. She has many regrets, one of which is about Jade. They had only just become lovers, but now she's dead. Suddenly, she feels the pitch-black floor moving beneath her. Rain begins to pour down heavily. On top of all that, a large serpent appears out of nowhere. Just as she's about to be devoured, she is saved by none other than Jade. Jade arrives, confidently affirming his earlier guess that Viche would be crying. Viche can't believe what she's seeing and can only manage to utter Jade's name. Once she processes this, she asks why Jade is there. Before he can respond, a worried Viche assumes that he must be dead. Suddenly, the serpent appears again, but Jade quickly fends it off with his blazing flames. Shortly after, he carries Viche and runs away from the squirming body of the serpent. Afterward, Viche returns to the topic, asking how he died. However, Jade reassures her, saying that neither of them is dead or alive. He jokes that they might be soon, though. Viche is bewildered and doesn't know how she should feel about this. She raises a valid concern. What if they both die here? However, Jade isn't bothered by this prospect because he's fine with dying as long as he gets to be with Viche. Initially, she thinks he's crazy, but she realizes it doesn't sound that bad. Later, Viche asks Jade what happened to their bodies. Jade responds by saying that her body is alive at the palace. Curious, she points out why he's glowing red, and he answers that he came with his actual body. Viche's confusion deepens. She then asks him if he's there because of her, but he denies it. This makes Viche even more upset and confused. She berates him for his reckless behavior and demands that he go back. Out of nowhere, a horde of shadow entities appear. Meanwhile, at the palace, Kendrick tells a battered Chechenti that he's sparing his life because he still has a purpose. Kendrick once again demands that Chechenti bring Viche back. However, Chechenti isn't intimidated by his threats. Chechenti proposes to Kendrick that if he wants to save Viche, he should give up his soul, presenting him with the vial containing the same curse she had placed on herself. Elsewhere, Jade and Viche are desperately running from the shadow entities. Viche and Jade quickly find a hiding spot from the shadows. She reflects on how bizarre her experience has been ever since she entered the realm of the dead. Meanwhile, Jade is eerily smiling, as though he's enjoying their predicament. Viche asks him if he knows a way out, but he proudly admits that he only knows how to get in. As Jade's answers grow increasingly unhelpful, Viche's irritation begins to boil over. She then demands to know why he came. Jade responds warmly, saying he was worried she might be alone and crying. Ignoring her obvious denial, he reminds her that he will never leave her side. Viche tells him that he didn't need to follow her into hell, but he brushes off her remark. She wonders if Jade even understands what he's doing. To her annoyance, everything he says somehow makes her blush. Without hesitation, Jade suggests that when they return to the world, they should get married. Flustered, Viche tells him to stop talking nonsense. However, his habit of making her uncomfortable isn't over yet. He asks whether that night they kissed was real or just a dream. As Viche squirms in embarrassment, Jade boldly asks if he can kiss her again. Viche refuses, but surprises him by saying she wants to do it herself. This catches Jade off guard, but he isn't satisfied so easily. He insists that she do it again and again. Meanwhile, Chechenti and Kendrick arrive in Viche's room. Chechenti casts a sleep spell on everyone present, rendering them unable to retaliate. Chechenti marvels at how the Emperor of Taranto managed such an unprecedented feat, forcing his way into the realm of the dead. Kendrick asks whether Jade can return. After some jesting, Chechenti confirms that a living being cannot stay long in the realm unless something happens to them there. Chechenti hopes Kendrick will stay true to his word. Meanwhile, Imelda silently criticizes her brother's foolishness for drinking the potion just to save Viche. She vows to herself that she will become empress no matter what. As Viche and Jade's intimate moment comes to an end, she scolds him for placing his hand where he shouldn't have. She asks him what they're going to do if they don't make it out of the realm. Jade responds casually, saying it wouldn't be so bad as long as they're together. She then questions whether he feels hunger, knowing that he came with his actual body. Jade jokingly replies that he does feel hungry, just not for food. Flustered, Viche asks why he suddenly seems so excited. Though he tries to act nonchalant, she points out that he had just tried to touch her earlier. Realizing that Jade is teasing her for his own amusement, she grows even more annoyed. Out of nowhere, light begins to shine from above. Thinking it might be the priest trying to save them, the two immediately head toward the source of the light. As they move through it, Viche suddenly hears a voice calling her name. Viche wakes up to Kendrick's voice and immediately starts searching for Jade. However, upon examining her surroundings, she notices that all her friends are unconscious. She senses an eerie atmosphere and notes that it feels strangely familiar. Soon after, the Grand Duke approaches her with concern, asking how she feels and inquiring about Jade's whereabouts since he had come after her. Upon hearing this, Viche rushes out to search for him. After some time, she feels defeated and laments that Jade lied about never leaving her alone. As she cries, Jade suddenly appears behind her and remarks that she's crying again. After checking on her well-being, Jade teases her by asking if she still loves him. Embarrassed, Viche scolds him for speaking like that in front of others. Later, Jade proposes revenge and asks Viche to join him. That day, Imelda is arrested and held captive before the Emperor. Jade presents her with two choices. The first is to return to her kingdom and inform them that Taranto is declaring war. After Jade presents the first option, Imelda scoffs at him, implying that he couldn't possibly be serious. He explains that she attempted to eliminate Viche, a noblewoman. However, Imelda denies these accusations, claiming there's no proof. Viche arrives and informs her that they have already gathered sufficient evidence to support their claims. Despite this, Imelda refuses to admit to her schemes. She expresses bafflement with a deadpan expression, stating that Jade is reckless for declaring war over such an insignificant woman. Upset, Jade tells her to shut up and suggests she listen to the second option if she doesn't like the first. He proposes that she marry his brother, Kamel Jaris Taranto, the man who had promised to marry her. Since she always wanted to marry someone from the Taranto bloodline, she might as well marry his brother. This way, Jade will forgive her for smuggling from Nerpasa. Now, Imelda is starting to feel outraged by these baseless accusations. She wonders where Kendrick and Chechenti are. Having nothing else to say in her defense, she decides to accept whatever the Emperor decides. On their way to her room, Viche asks Benjamin if he knew that Prince Kamel was alive. Benjamin reveals that it was top-secret information among palace staff. Benjamin then warns Viche to be careful because what happened to them might happen again. Viche, visibly upset, replies that she's not foolish enough to fall for something like that twice. He continues, noting that she can never trust anyone, not himself, not even the Emperor. Upon hearing this, Viche ponders if Jade feels the same way. Having no trust seems so lonely, but despite that, he chose to trust her. After her thoughts subside, she expresses her appreciation for Benjamin's concern. Meanwhile, at the palace, Cecilia warns Imelda that this is her last chance, so she shouldn't take it for granted. However, Cecilia is troubled by something strange. Despite having seen Imelda multiple times, she can't seem to see her face at this moment. Kendrick shares his sentiment, saying that if he were the Emperor, he would have already executed her. He then advises her to give up on her ambitions and be grateful that Jade has given her a chance. Pissed off, Imelda declares that she's no longer aiming for his heart. Upon hearing Imelda's declaration, Kendrick responds with cold indifference. Feeling betrayed, she vows to exact revenge on all of them, including Kendrick. 2 days after the incident, envoys from Nerpasa request that Imelda and Kamel's marriage be held there, but Jade refuses. He tells Viche that he wants the marriage to take place in Toronto so they can leave as soon as possible. Once matters with Imelda are settled, Kendrick prepares for his departure. However, he doesn't seem interested in talking to her, possibly due to all the events that have transpired. A lot of changes occur after that event. Cecilia will be transferred to the shrine since her powers aren't helpful with Jade's curse. Now, Viche is reflecting on how, across their many lifetimes, they have finally become lovers. However, she's growing increasingly uncomfortable as Jade doesn't seem to be giving her much personal space anymore. He's always clingy. No matter how many times she tells him to stop being so close, she finds herself tightening her grip on him instead. For her, it wouldn't be much of a problem if he were only considerate of the knights and maids present. Additionally, Viche has responsibilities that she can't focus on or fulfill because Jade is always around. Upset, she tells him to let her go, but he teases her and asks for a kiss. Though flustered, she warns him to be mindful of his words because the servants are nearby. Jade starts to express his true feelings, saying that he always looks for her every time he wakes up. Viche acknowledges this and asks him if he wants to marry her, to which he gladly confirms. Though she thinks it's too soon, she does admit that she also doesn't want to be away from him. Meanwhile, Chechenti is plotting another scheme. 2 days earlier, when Chechenti was casting a spell on Viche, he noticed that she had a strange aura around her, which wasn't due to the necklace she was wearing. Shortly after, Imelda appeared, revealing her disguise as a maid. She told him that despite giving up on winning Jade's heart, she wasn't giving up on becoming an empress. Her current plan was to help Kamel become the emperor and then become his empress. However, Chechenti was somewhat reluctant about this. He proposed using Kendrick instead, since they had made a deal not to betray him, which is why he could still help her. Chechenti then explained that the potion he gave Kendrick was something that amplified a person's desires. Imelda finally understood what he was saying. He mentioned that Kendrick was gathering dark mages in Toronto, and she should use them to her advantage. Chechenti himself had gathered people to support Kamel's rise to the throne. She recalled what Jade accused her of and realized that it could all be Chechenti's doing. Imelda asked Chechenti what he truly wanted. He replied that he just wanted the heart of the Emperor as well as Viche's, his lover. At present, Viche is visiting a treatment center where she greets both new and old children. There, she meets Beltine and Vere, who asks her if she was getting married soon, and if it is to Kendrick. She quickly denies this. Worried, they ask her if she will ever return if she does get married. Seeing the sad expressions of the kids, she realizes that perhaps it isn't yet a good time to get married. Later that day, as she ponders her future work at the center, she sees Kendrick. Viche asks if Kendrick is okay, noticing that he looks like he's in pain. However, he rebuffs her, pushing her hands away and telling her not to come near him, specifically because it's her. She needs to leave him alone. Confused, she at least offers to call someone for help. Shortly after, a knight approaches them and escorts Kendrick away. Viche is worried about Kendrick's condition, but there's barely anything she can do since he seems to dislike being around her anymore. She also doesn't want him to get the wrong idea. As the knight turns their back away from Kendrick, he reveals an ominous smile. Upon arriving in her room, Jade asks Viche what took her so long, given that the carriage arrived a while ago. She heatedly asks him if he has been monitoring her carriage's arrival. Though he denies her suspicion, the scattered paperwork around him tells a different story. The two exchange banter, but after that was out of the way, Jade returns to his initial question. Viche explains that she saw Kendrick earlier and he didn't seem to be feeling well. However, this makes Jade unhappy. He once again mentions that Viche can't seem to look away from pitiful and vulnerable people. Jade begs for all of her attention and pity. She reassures him that he doesn't need to be pitiful to get her attention because she doesn't want him to be miserable at all. She promises him that she'll never run away, which greatly pleases him. Viche is happy that Jade has become mostly optimistic recently. However, she's a bit troubled about the upcoming marriage between Imelda and Kamel. She recalls what Imelda told her about being unavoidable once she fails. Jade tells her not to worry about other people, especially Imelda, who almost got both of them killed. Instead, she should think about their own marriage. Jade shares his thoughts on how to break the news of their wedding to Marquis Emilian. After processing his words, Viche reminds him that they're still not ready for marriage, but he doesn't take her refusal seriously. He continues to tease her, asking if they can kiss, and adds that if she won't allow it, he'd try something better. Flustered, Viche worries that things are moving too fast between them. As inappropriate thoughts cloud her mind, Jade retreats and mocks her, saying she needs to grow up. He reassures her that the wedding doesn't have to happen now and promises to wait. Shortly after, he invites her to visit the peach tree. In the garden, Viche admires the breathtaking view of the peach tree and comments on how she never imagined they'd still be together, spending time by the tree. Jade tells her he always believed their love would deepen. Viche wonders when spring will arrive, as that is when the peach tree is at its best. Hearing this, Jade uses his magic to make the tree blossom. Initially fascinated, Viche quickly becomes upset, scolding him for using his magic on something so trivial. Jade counters by telling her to enjoy it while it lasts because they both know it won't be long before it fades again. Viche responds that there's no point in being sad since she knows the blossoms will return. Jade reflects on how long it took him to realize that some things never return. In his previous life, he killed thousands of people who had wronged Viche, but no matter how much blood was spilled, she never came back. He reveals that he decided to use his powers to go back in time and search for her instead. Saddened, Viche asks why he risked everything knowing he could have died. Jade explains that she was the only one who gave him comfort and reaches out for an embrace. Both acknowledge that Jade's heart might give out at any moment, and they promise each other never to leave each other's side. Imelda approaches the agonized Kendrick, making him realize his desire, Viche. After succumbing to his desire, Kendrick becomes fully controlled by the spell. At the palace, Viche is enjoying her tea time when news arrives that the marriage between Imelda and Kamel has been set for an earlier date. Confused, she wonders why Imelda will want to have it done so soon. As she ponders this outside, she sees Cecilia digging the ground and assumes it's for Imelda. However, Cecilia tells her that isn't her intention, though she would love to entertain that idea. She explains that she's trying to plant some seeds because she's curious about what they will grow. Cecilia then talks about the goddess of the Empire of Taranto, Iosis, known as the goddess of benevolence and abundance. The seeds Cecilia is planting are from the temple, and she's curious to see how they will turn out. Skeptical, Viche feels like Cecilia is plotting something. Meanwhile, officials at the palace are debating whether they should allow Kamel to marry someone hastily. Jade proposes that they should let one of their daughters marry Kamel instead. The room falls silent. Acknowledging their silence, Jade wonders if they're scheming something treasonous. He then menacingly tells them that he's just joking and how much he trusts them. Clearly, he's not serious. Later, Duffrey encounters Cecilia and Viche, asking what they're doing. After they explain, he berates them for planting something they don't even know what it is. Cecilia pricks her finger, worrying Duffrey, who offers to treat it at the palace. Viche, on the other hand, feels like something is strange between the two. Duffrey tells her not to be reckless, knowing that both Cecilia and Viche always bring trouble. He advises her not to be too hard on herself just because she's a saintess, reminding her that at the end of the day, she's still human. Duffrey and Cecilia share their personal views about their goddess, as both are servants of faith. He jokingly tells her that he became a servant because he gets paid, though when he was 15, it was different. He advises her that since she doesn't get paid, she shouldn't push herself. As Duffrey's on his way out, he sees Kamel, who is supposedly insane Kendrick, and some nobles. Suddenly, Chenti appears behind him. Later, Duffrey finds himself being held captive. He overhears Chenti and Imelda discussing the progress of their schemes, all thanks to Kendrick. Now, Imelda is excited about her upcoming wedding. The day before the wedding, Jade and Benjamin are discussing the finances headed to the treatment center. Benjamin is upset, telling Jade that he should really discuss financial matters with him before making decisions. To top it all off, Jade might be getting married next year, so they need to be wise with their expenses. Jade wonders how everyone knows about that, to which Benjamin responds that everyone has been anticipating it. Troubled, Jade claims he needs a vacation, which greatly irritates Benjamin because he knows all Jade's work will be passed to him. As Benjamin is leaving Jade's room, he sees Viche bringing snacks for Jade. Seeing this, Benjamin leaves, defeated, despite being invited to eat along with them. On his way out, Benjamin encounters Father Michel. Father Michel informs Benjamin that his twin brother Duffrey has been missing since yesterday. As Viche enters the room to bring Jade snacks, she sees him sound asleep on the couch. Jade wakes up and asks Viche to feed him. Though she feels he's getting ahead of himself, she can't help but do what he says. Instead of eating the food Viche prepared, Jade grabs her hand, which has jam on it, and licks it, greatly confusing her. She tells him to stop messing around and eat his food properly. Jade then asks her to sit on his lap, to which she acquiesces. He tells her that he's so happy she's the first thing he sees. Upset, Viche tells him it's because he's being so careless. Jade smiles, saying he meant it because he intends to marry her. Embarrassed, Viche tells him she'll answer him during their vacation. Upon hearing this, Jade pins her down, asking if she knows what she's saying. Embarrassed, Viche exclaims that she does and that she wants it to happen too. Upon hearing that Viche also wants it to happen, Jade retreats, saying that he doesn't want to carelessly rush things. Annoyed, she wonders why he's acting like he doesn't want to do it now that she finally granted him permission. He then tells her that he doesn't want their first time to be in his office. Jade declares that he's going to officially propose to her, so he will also be expecting a proper answer in the future. On the day of the wedding, the venue is bustling with guests. Viche is talking with Louis when two familiar faces arrive, Veltine and Vere. She notices that a young lady named Eve is with them. Louis asks if little Eve also suffers from mana hypersensitivity. Viche confirms, noting that she thought to have been cursed by a witch, so the villagers burned her home. With the help of her relatives, she was transferred to the treatment center. Louis acknowledges Viche's concern for the needy, saying that she's slowly building a future for the world. Confused, Viche asks what he means. He answers that the children she's helping are the future of the Empire. As she realizes this, she smiles, acknowledging that she has changed this world. Later, Viche meets Cecilia, who's been crying seeds again. She wonders if they're the same seeds from before. Cecilia then expresses her sentiment, saying that it would be nice to plant a tree from Taranto in Nerpasa. That way, if Kamal ever misses home, he can just gaze at the tree. Worried, Viche tells Cecilia that she's unsure whether Imelda will like the gift. Cecilia explains that she'll put it inside a jewelry box, making Viche worry even more. She then asks what kind of tree it will grow into, and Cecilia tells her that it's going to be a Tamar tree, symbolizing the blessing of the goddess. Cecilia eerily mutters, wishing for Imelda's wedding to go well, especially since this is the last chance the goddess has given her. As Viche listens to her mumble with concern, a sudden explosion erupts. A horde of monsters suddenly appears out of nowhere, ravaging the area. Imelda watches the chaos unfold, marking the start of her most anticipated wedding. Chaos erupts at the palace as monsters scatter everywhere, causing several casualties. Viche and Cecilia struggle to find a safe place to hide, but plan to head to the ballroom, where most of the guards are located. Viche hopes that her family and friends are safe, especially Jade. Shortly after, they see reinforcements fighting back, which gives them hope. However, their optimism is shattered when soldiers from Nerpasa take Cecilia hostage. Viche wonders if Imelda is orchestrating all of this, committing treason. Kendrick suddenly arrives, commanding the Nerpasa soldiers to deliver the saintess somewhere. Seeing how Kendrick just commanded the soldiers and is fully armed, she assumes that both Imelda and Kendrick are colluding for his rebellion. After Kendrick tells her that they always somehow meet during crisis, Viche notes that the circumstance now is different. Instead of Kendrick saving her, he's on the side of the opposition. Viche asks where they're taking Cecilia, but he refuses to answer. She exclaims that they're declaring war for no reason, but Kendrick explains that they're merely trying to give the throne to its rightful owner. Kendrick reminds her that Jade himself doesn't deserve the throne because he stole it as well. Furious, she slaps his hand away and states that what he's saying is nonsense. He then pulls her, threatening to tie her up if she doesn't stop resisting. Viche gives Kendrick a resounding slap. As she pays attention to his eyes, she notices something strange. She finally realizes that Kendrick is not himself. Despite her best efforts, she's powerless against Kendrick's strength as he drags her away. Suddenly, Jade steps in and commands him to let go. Jade and reinforcements arrive, surrounding Kendrick. Benjamin rushes to the scene to inform Jade that they have captured all the rebels in the vicinity and dealt with the remaining beasts with the help of magicians. Without delay, Jade orders Benjamin to take Viche somewhere safe. Only Jade and Kendrick remain. Jade asks if he misses the battlefield since he's now rebelling with Imelda. Kendrick tells him to worry about his life instead. Jade ponders how his mercy towards Kendrick has bitten him in the back. Jade then asks him what his true intention is. Kendrick impassively responds that he's going to take Viche to the kingdom of Nurpasa. Upon hearing this, Jade unleashes his powers, saying that Kendrick must have gone insane for saying that in front of him. Kendrick braces himself for impact. Meanwhile, Benjamin and Viche are trying to find a place to evacuate. Benjamin explains that Nurpasa has been trying to gather dark magicians from the Empire of Taranto. Viche asks if the dark magicians are the reason why Kendrick is suddenly acting weird, but Benjamin only knows that the dark magicians of Taranto and soldiers of Nurpasa are working together to overthrow Jade. They are also struggling to eliminate the monsters because the guards are currently prioritizing the safety of the guests who are attending the wedding. He tells Viche to stay at the ballroom for now. Worried, she asks him about Cecilia. Benjamin tells her that Cecilia's safety is of utmost importance, but saving her and Duffrey comes later. Surprised, Viche tells him that Duffrey was just with them 2 days ago. Elsewhere, Duffrey escapes from his cell. Suddenly, he hears a ruckus. It's Cecilia. As the guard is looking for him, Duffrey sneaks up from behind to knock out the guard. After hitting the guard, Cecilia is overjoyed to see a familiar face. Duffrey asks her how she ended up in the cell. Cecilia begins explaining what's happening outside, trembling in fear. However, as she continues to ramble, Duffrey realizes she's no longer recounting events but delivering an oracle. Suddenly, Cecilia collapses, leaving Duffrey deeply worried. Meanwhile, chaos continues to engulf the palace as the battle rages on. The Grand Duke has just finished eliminating the rebels and suspects that this rebellion was meticulously planned. His subordinates arrive to inform him that they have cleared the annex of monsters. He commands some of his men to follow him to the ballroom, while others remain behind to monitor the dark magicians. One of the guards calls for his attention and shows him a strange magic circle. As he examines it, he feels intimidated by its menacing aura. He assumes it was created by the dark magicians, but wonders whose blood was used to craft such a large-scale magic circle. Another subordinate arrives to report that more magic circles are scattered throughout the palace. The Grand Duke orders them to locate all the magic circles and do their best to prevent their activation. Meanwhile, Benjamin is escorting Viche to an evacuation spot. He asks her if she's certain that Duffrey was kidnapped by Imelda, but Viche admits she isn't sure. Suddenly, they hear a commotion in the hallway. It turns out Valtine and Vere are being held captive. Annoyed, Viche reiterates Benjamin's earlier assurance about this place being safe. As the twins struggle to resist their captors, Eve throws a rock at one of the guards, hitting him on the head. In retaliation, the guards push her down the stairs. Fortunately, Viche rushes in just in time to catch her, but both of them fall unconscious. Jade and Kendrick's intense battle continues. Jade expresses his bafflement, questioning why Kendrick is colluding with Imelda. However, Kendrick retorts that he has never obeyed anyone else's orders. Jade then asks if Kendrick is doing all of this for Viche, but Kendrick refuses to answer. But silence speaks volumes. No answer is an answer. Frustrated, Jade decides to deal the finishing blow, declaring that he did not travel through time and find the perfect one just so Kendrick could take her away. At that moment, Kendrick recalls his conversation with Cecenti. He doesn't need to defeat Jade, he only requires a tiny spill of his blood. Meanwhile, Viche remains unconscious, but it's merely a facade. Suddenly, she screams out Vere and Valtine's names, urging them to get down. Benjamin swiftly strikes down the guards holding the children captive. However, Viche is now taken hostage. Troubled, Benjamin struggles to figure out how they can turn the situation around. To their surprise, Viche strikes the soldier holding her hostage. She then urges Benjamin to quickly eliminate the remaining soldiers. Afterward, Benjamin scolds Viche for her recklessness. However, she reminds him that she took swordsmanship lessons. Viche asks the children how they ended up in such a dangerous place. They explain that Eve claims she didn't detect any monstrous presence there. Surprised, Viche wonders if Eve possesses detection magic. This theory is confirmed when Eve points towards Duffrey and Cecilia, claiming she senses something holy emanating from them. Duffrey and Cecilia finally arrive. Viche and Benjamin immediately sprint toward them, but Cecilia is still unconscious. Duffrey looks disheveled but insists he's fine. He's just hungry. Eve offers him some cookies, and Duffrey, overjoyed, can't hold back his tears. He exclaims that he must be in heaven. After the group settles down, Viche wonders why Duffrey was kept alive. Annoyed, Duffrey tells her that her remark is uncalled for. He then reveals that he found a monostone around the palace, suspecting it might be the catalyst for summoning the monsters. Benjamin disagrees, claiming that the dark magicians were responsible for summoning the monsters. He explains that when they defeated some of the dark magicians, several creatures also fell. Veltine steps in and mentions seeing something strange on his way to the passage. He leads them to the same magic circle that the Grand Duke had discovered earlier. Duffrey examines it and notes that the magic circle hasn't been activated yet, suggesting that the monostones might be part of this spell. Suddenly, Viche senses Jade's magic as her necklace begins glowing. Without hesitation, she decides to run after him. Before Benjamin and the others can catch up to her, they notice that the magic circle has just activated. Viche reaches the site of Jade and Kendrick's battle, but finds no sign of either of them. Only Jade's cloak remains. As she wonders what happened, Chechenti suddenly appears behind her and makes her unconscious once again. As she loses consciousness, Viche realizes that Chechenti is the dark magician behind all these schemes. Meanwhile, Jade is kneeling before Imelda, dripping with blood. Imelda mocks him for being incapacitated, though she acknowledges that Kendrick suffered greatly as well. To her, it was all worth it. Chechenti drags Viche to the chaotic scene. Viche firmly orders Imelda to put an end to this madness, but before she can say more, Chechenti presses a knife against her neck and commands her to stay quiet. Imelda tells Chechenti to be careful with Viche's face since she'll become a gift for Kendrick. Or perhaps they'll just offer her empty shell. Chechenti menacingly asks Viche how she's still alive when she was supposed to have died long ago. Chechenti tells Viche that she can't deceive him. He knows that she defied fate, and with Jade's heart and her soul, he could also become immortal. Just as Chechenti is about to stab Viche, Jade grabs him by the neck. In disbelief, Chechenti can't believe how Jade escaped from his spell. Jade then tells him that it's foolish to desire his power and heart when Chechenti doesn't even have the means to contain it. Chechenti drops dead after Jade snaps his neck. Viche thinks that Jade is no longer the person she knows. He wouldn't have resorted to violence if he were with her, but not this time. Additionally, his eyes are pitch black. Somewhere, Jade lies on the ground with the bloody magic circle beneath him. He wonders if he's going to die in vain after traveling through time multiple times. Suddenly, a glowing white mirror image of Jade appears before him. He claims to be Taranto. He mocks Jade for using his powers, yet now he's about to die. However, he commends Jade for being the only one to use his power to such a great degree. Jade then asks Taranto for help, but Taranto tells him that they are the bloodline that ripped his heart out. It would be stupid of him to help Jade. Jade makes a valid point, saying that if he's the first one to use his power, then he must be enjoying this. Taranto feels annoyed that Jade makes sense, though he finds it foolish that Jade is sacrificing his life just for his lover. Eventually, Taranto decides to help him. Jade, or rather Taranto, uses his power to drain the life from all the dark magicians and monsters in the palace, and the rebels drop dead in an instant. Cecilia awakens, sensing an ominous aura around the palace. She tells them that they need to stop the Emperor. Meanwhile, Imelda is terrified for her life after seeing Taranto kill Chechenti with his bare hands. Luckily for her, Kendrick just woke up. Amused, Taranto tells Kendrick to be his opponent. However, Kendrick suddenly grabs Imelda's neck. Viche realizes that her hunch was true. Kendrick wasn't himself at all. Kendrick tells her how much he despises her for putting countless innocent lives at risk. Of all the times he's been on the battlefield, this is the first time he feels the desire to kill. Kendrick drops Imelda to the ground and then stabs her in the neck. Kendrick declares the execution of Imelda for putting their pasa at risk. Viche understands that Kendrick has no other choice, and this is the best outcome for the relations between Taranto and her pasa. Disappointed, Taranto wonders why Jade even called him. The least Taranto can do now is clean up the mess. Rain starts pouring, extinguishing the flames. Viche wonders why Taranto is helping the Empire, considering he was the one who cursed the Imperial bloodline out of hatred for the first Emperor. She also worries about what happened to Jade. Suddenly, Cecilia shouts, pleading with Taranto to stop. She explains that the more Taranto uses his magic, the more strain it places on Jade's body. His heart won't be able to survive casting such a grand spell. Meanwhile, in the pitch-black realm, Jade begins coughing up blood. Worried, Viche asks Cecilia what she means. Upon seeing Cecilia, Taranto grins as he realizes something. Benjamin and Duffrey arrive and after surveying the scene, ask if the person floating is Taranto. Viche yells at Taranto, demanding that he bring Jade back. Taranto responds calmly, saying that he will. He explains that Jade constantly uses his power to stop Viche Amelian's death every time it happens. After finishing his work, Taranto returns to his realm, allowing Jade to take over his body once again. However, Jade immediately collapses, coughing up blood and falling unconscious. Saddened, Viche begs Jade to wake up. She desperately wants to hear him say everything is okay and see him smile at her again. Cecilia, Duffrey, Benjamin, and the children are all in shock. Viche gives Jade the amber necklace and mutters about the vacation they were supposed to have after everything was over. She tells him she was supposed to answer him there and begs him not to die. Suddenly, the necklace begins glowing once again. The amber necklace Viche gave Jade starts glowing. At the same time, something inside her pocket begins resonating. Cecilia quickly points this out. It turns out to be the seeds that Cecilia was supposed to give Imelda. Viche explains that she picked them up earlier during the chaos. Everyone wonders why the seeds are glowing. The seeds start floating and eventually get absorbed by the necklace. Shortly thereafter, a magic circle forms beneath Jade, and glowing trees begin growing around them. Duffrey is the first to realize, followed by Viche, that these trees are the Tamar seeds they planted a few days ago. They are from the temple and seem to be imbued with holy power. Cecilia decides to use her power to help Jade. Although her power never worked on him before, she feels that this time will be different. Vere and Eve decide to help out too. Vere tells Viche that if some ominous magic is trying to harm the Emperor's heart, they should definitely assist. Viche remembers that Vere has the ability to extinguish unnecessary surplus magic, but she doesn't want them to get hurt either. However, their resolve is strong. They want to help Viche and Jade. She recalls the time when she greatly loathed herself for not having the power to cure Jade. But now, she understands that all the decisions and choices she made along the way led up to this point. She gathered all these good-hearted people to help when the time came. The holy power emanating from the Tamar trees, combined with Cecilia's powers and Vere's ability to cleanse Jade's mana, finally works. Jade opens his eyes. Viche asks Jade if he's okay, but all he can muster is to ask if she's okay. She can't help but cry, knowing that he just came back from the dead, yet the first thing on his mind is her well-being. After the unprecedented events, they stumbled upon Kamel's body, which was used for the bloody magic circle. As for Imelda's body, it never returned to Nerpasa, but was instead buried in a dark corner. When Jade woke up, the glowing Tamar trees began to disappear. Although the priests of the shrine were interested in seeing this, they weren't able to find a single trace. Cecilia concluded that those seeds were probably the final blessing the goddess had to offer for the Empire. She noted that if Jade had died, Nerpasa and Taranto would have become enemies. Cecilia moved out of the palace, and Kendrick became a criminal. However, there are currently attempts to testify that he was just being controlled. Not to mention, he executed Imelda. Now, he's just awaiting the verdict. It would still probably take a while since the person who's going to give him a verdict is still asleep. Though Jade woke up briefly, he fell unconscious again. However, the good news is that he's recovering well. Still, not everything is smooth sailing. Officials are currently trying to elect a new emperor due to Jade's illness. Understandably, they cannot simply wait for Jade to recover without taking action. The Empire needs someone to act on behalf of the Emperor to manage its affairs. Troubled, Viche doesn't know what to do. Upset, Viche tells her father to do his best since he's going to be Jade's father, confusing him in the process. She had meant to say father-in-law, but fumbled her words. As Viche continues ranting, Jade finally wakes up. Viche and Benjamin's screams echo throughout the palace as they make a commotion, worried yet overjoyed that Jade has finally regained consciousness. Jade reveals that his curse is broken. He mentions having had a conversation with the dragon Taranto in his subconscious. Although he forgot most of the details, he believes Taranto helped him one last time. On Jade and Viche's wedding day, Cecilia comments that she once thought Viche and Kendrick would have made a good couple. This makes Viche uncomfortable, especially since it's her wedding day. Viche recalls her conversation with Kendrick on the day Jade woke up. She informed him that he wouldn't be going to prison. Kendrick explained that he never intended to coerce her, but admitted she was different from anyone he had ever met. He wondered if Viche would ever remember him, to which she replied that she would always remember him as General Kendrick. After that conversation, Kendrick disappeared and was never seen again. During the wedding, Cecilia tells Viche that she always doubted her relationship with Jade would work due to his personality, making Viche uncomfortable again. However, Cecilia reassures her that the goddess will likely bless her with a wonderful wedding. Jade and Viche marry under the blossoming peach trees. And that's a wrap for I Raised My Childhood Friend as a Tyrant. No matter how many lifetimes it takes, Viche and Jade's hearts will always find their way back to each other. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and subscribe for more heartwarming stories.